And Councillor Singh has just joined. I'm just going to test his audio. Councillor Singh, can we test your audio, please?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Chair, you do have quorum. You have 9 members, including yourself, present, and you can proceed.
Good evening and welcome to our virtual meeting of Brampton's Planning Development Committee. This meeting will be held through remote electronic participation in accordance with Municipal Act 2001. City Council has authorized virtual meetings of its committees with members participating remotely to facilitate the continuation of city businesses during the current pandemic. We will begin the meeting with the City Clerk calling the roll for attendance at today's meeting.
So members of the committee, I will be calling your name. Please indicate your presence. Councillor Santos?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Visante?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Willens?
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman?
Present.
Thank you. Chair Medeiros is present. Councillor Williams?
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Fortini?
I'm here, Pierre. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon?
You here?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. You have 10 members present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add a business item to today's meeting? If so, please use the chat function in WebEx to add your name to the speakers list. And I don't see anyone, but I do believe Councillor Fortini, you wanted to add an item?
I did add my name to the, yes.
Oh, wait. I don't see your name here, but okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to ask for a discussion on the DC charges for development.
Okay. So, City Clerk.
So, Mr. Chair, that would be proposed item 9.1 under other new business.
Okay. So, Councillor Dillon, is it regarding the agenda that you'd like to speak to?
No, consent agenda.
Okay, so that's fine. So I see no other speakers for the agenda. So I believe we have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini to approve the agenda, that the agenda for the regular Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16, 2020 be approved. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. There are no objections, so the motion carries. Meetings of municipal councils are to be open to public for transparency and accountability, and our meetings will continue to be as well with a few precautions and limitations. In-person attendance at this meeting is very limited, and members, most staff are participating electronically in this meeting. The public can still participate in this meeting in a number of ways. Watching the meeting remotely through the city's live stream and playback of the archived video stream, registering with the city clerk's office as a virtual delegate to participate in a meeting, or registering to attend the meeting in person to observe the meeting. Submitting questions about the agenda, business, and decisions made by council today, emailing the city clerk's office at cityclerksoffice@brampton.ca with your question, which may be read into the public meeting record during the 15 minutes public question period before the end of the meeting. Also, continue to follow important service and public health updates through the city's website at brampton.ca, which include updated information on the city's response, as well as links to other important sources of information, including Region of Appeals, Public Health, Province of Ontario, and Government of Canada. A final reminder for members of council before we start to consider today's agenda business, until you are assigned the floor, then please keep your video and your audio on mute. This will help ensure only one person is speaking at one time and minimize any background disruptions during the meeting. Declarations of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? I see none. So noted for the clerk. Our next item is consent motion. So I do have at least a list of speakers. First, Councillor Bowman.
Mr. Chair, Councillor Visante had asked about consent. He had put his name on the list at the start of the meeting.
Yeah, but I have Councillor Bowman before him at 7:02. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Bowman.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I would have yielded the floor to Councillor Visante. I just would like to remove item 7.1 from consent.
Okay, so duly noted. My next is Councillor Dillon. Councillor Dillon? Okay, I'll move on to Councillor Vicente. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Bowman did what I was going to do. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dillon, I see you here.
He wants to remove 7.2. Oh,
Okay.
if he doesn't do it, I'll do it. It's okay.
Okay, so 7.2. So City Clerk, he's expressed, okay, his mic's not working. Okay, thank you, so noted. And also, I would like to note that we have received an added delegation request in correspondence, item 11.5 related to item 7.2. And does any member, as we spoke to, I see no further members. So now, Councillor Singh, you move the motion and is seconded by Councillor Bowman to approve the consent motion. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, there are no objections, so the motion carries. So our next item is statutory public meeting report. This is the public meeting of the Planning and Development Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act of Ontario. The proposals to be heard at this public meeting are the result of applications made under the Planning Act. They are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. We do not have any city-initiated proposals as part of tonight's statutory public meeting. The intent of this public meeting is to receive submissions from the public regarding these proposals. Given we may have persons watching this meeting through the city's live stream, we will have staff present each proposal subject to a statutory public meeting unless committee decides otherwise. After receiving any pre-registered delegations, members of the committee may ask questions for clarification, but will not engage in debate on the proposed item at this time. Committee consideration of the proposal will occur at a future meeting when planning staff bring forward the final recommendation report on each proposal. The city has also posted to its website, brampton.ca, supporting information documentation for these development applications for public review and reference. We will now proceed to consider the 7 items on this evening's statutory public meeting agenda. After consideration of these public meetings items, committee will deal with the balance of the agenda items on tonight's agenda. So our first item today is item 5.1, application to amend zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision by Glenn Sharon Associates on behalf of Georgian Mayfield Incorporated, location 6875, 6889 Mayfield Road, Ward 10. I believe now I will hand it over to staff for Himanshu to do a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and the public. My name is Himanshu Katyal, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by the owners, Georgian Humbervale Inc., Sterling Chase Inc., and their planning consultants are Glenn Schnarr and Associates. Next slide. The subject property is located in Ward 10 at 6875 and 6889 Mayfield Road in the northeast part of Brampton. The nearest major intersection is Mayfield Road and McBean Road. Next slide. These applications were filed with the city and deemed complete on November 27, 2019. They were then circulated to commenting departments and agencies. Public notice of this meeting was provided in the newspaper and to the residents on March 6, 2020. However, that meeting was canceled as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. For this public meeting, the notice was mailed to the area residents and posted in the newspaper on October 15, 2020. Before this public meeting, a virtual community meeting was held by the applicant in consultation with the area councillors on September 1st, 2020, to inform the area residents about the proposed development and get their feedback on the proposal. The issues noted at the meeting by the residents have been summarized in the information report. Next slide. This map shows the 240-meter circulation area. Direct mail notice was provided to the property owners within 240 meters. A notice of public meeting was also posted in the Brampton Guardian newspaper. Next slide. Surrounding land uses include, to the north is Mayfield Road and the existing residential uses in the town of Caledon. To the south are the NHS Natural Heritage System lands and a future public park. To the east are the NHS lands, beyond which are existing residential uses. And to the east is the NHS area and future residential uses. Next slide. The applicant is generally proposing to amend the official plan, zoning bylaw, and a proposed draft plan of subdivision to permit 204 residential units, including 96 apartment units in a 5-story apartment block, 5 2-story back-to-back townhouses, 80 3-story stacked back-to-back townhouses, 15 3-story standard townhouses, 8 2-story single detached houses, and valley land blocks and buffer. Next slide. The official plan designation of the property is residential and open space on Schedule A general land use designations. The residential designation permits a broad range of residential uses that range from single detached units to apartments. The open space designation consists of both natural and cultural heritage, as well as recreational open space features. Next slide. Furthermore, Schedule A1 of the official plan designates the subject property as Upscale Executive Housing Special Policy Area. This designation permits a low-density form of housing characterized by high-value, high-quality houses on large lots located in areas with enhanced street designs, open space, and related community amenities. Next slide. The Vales of Humber Secondary Plan Area 50A designates the property for executive residential, executive transition residential, and natural heritage system. Permitted uses under the current residential designations include low-density residential uses characterized by enhanced design treatment. The NHS designation provides policies for the protection of natural heritage features. Next slide. The Vales of Humber Block Plan designates the lands as executive residential, executive transition residential, natural heritage system, and buffer lands. Next slide. The proposal seeks to amend the secondary plan and block plan by creating a new special policy area to permit the proposed executive single detached, townhouse, and apartment uses. There will be no change to the land's designated natural heritage system. Next slide, please. The property is zoned a residential rural estate holding, REH. This zone permits single detached dwelling, a group home type 1, and auxiliary group home. Next slide. This proposal seeks to amend the zoning bylaw to implement site-specific provisions to permit the proposed residential uses. Next slide. At this time, staff has noted these issues that will need to be addressed. First, whether this proposal is consistent with the intent of the executive residential designation of the official plan. Second, whether this proposal will provide adequate amenity area to serve the needs of future residents. Third, confirmation that all proposed building lots are outside the natural heritage system area. And fourth, whether this development will provide an appropriate transition to the future residential uses to the east. Next slide. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel Official Plan, the City of Brampton Official Plan, and the design guidelines. Next slide. Staff will continue the review of the application, including reviewing comments from the public. Staff will at a later date advance a final recommendation report to Council for a decision. Issues that have been raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have provided comments through all channels. Next slide. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Himanshu Katyal, and my contact information is posted on the screen. And the applicant is Glenn Schnar and Associates, representing the owner, Georgian Humbervale Inc. and Sterling Chase Inc. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I believe, City Clerk, we have delegations.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are 7 speakers, plus there is correspondence identified under item 11.2. The speakers in order, I'll just cite them. Jason Afonso, on behalf of the applicant, and there is a presentation. We have Huang Nguyen, we have Rajiv Sani, Jotvinder Sodhi, Nitin Aurora, Balbir Singh, and Sanket Radadia. And we'll start with Jason Alfonso. And Jason, we're going to bring up your presentation.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of committee, and members of the public. My name is Jason Alfonso, Glenn Schnar and Associates Inc., here on behalf of Georgian Mayfield Inc., the applicant. I did want to take this opportunity to provide a brief overview of the proposed design and provide an overview of the proposal in the context of the broader policy framework. Firstly, in recognizing the executive nature of the area, we can move to the next slide. And recognizing the executive nature of the area, we want to emphasize that the proposal is designed with an upscale urban design theme. And this is exemplified through the landscape plan shown on the screen. The proposal includes an upscale architectural design, which you will see in subsequent slides. But you will see an enhanced landscape design here and upgraded paving materials throughout. All parking areas will be accommodated in an underground parking level or screened from the public street, and that would minimize surface parking, which would otherwise detract from the streetscape. The proposal also provides for considerable separation and buffering to the existing community to the west by way of the existing valley system, and this provides for an appropriate transition from the nearby neighborhood to the proposed development. And to be clear, there's no proposed road connections from this community to the existing neighborhood to the west across the valley. Considerable private outdoor amenity space is also provided, accommodating both active and passive recreational space. And on the next slide, you'll see a rendering of the proposed building along the Mayfield Road frontage. A key map is provided at the bottom left corner, showing the area of the plan where these buildings are located. And as shown, both the 5-story apartment and proposed townhouses are designed to address the Mayfield Road frontage through strong upscale architecture. The buildings are designed with high-quality building materials, brick, stone, and precast. The buildings are designed with considerable glazing, which creates an inviting appearance and contributes to the upscale design. Gateway feature is also proposed at the southeast corner, and the photo of the gateway structure is a sample of something that could be implemented at the entry of the community. On the next slide are renderings of the built form along the internal public road. On the left side are the stacked townhouses proposed along the west side of the street, and on the right side are the rear lane townhouses proposed along the east side of the street. And similarly, these buildings are again proposed with high quality building materials and designed to address the street with a strong pedestrian-oriented interface. And you'll notice no garages are proposed along these frontages. For the stacked townhouses, vehicle parking is provided by way of an underground parking garage. And for the rear lane townhouses, all parking will be accommodated off the rear lane and screened from the street. On the next slide are renderings of the proposed detached dwellings. These are located along the easterly edge of the subject lands and are intended to provide an appropriate transition to the future development immediately east of the subject lands. These dwellings are 2 stories in height, 40-foot lots, and again constructed with brick and stone material and expected to be consistent with the future low-density development to the east. The parking and garages for these units are also located off the internal lane, which allows for a strong pedestrian-oriented interface along the local public road. On the next slide, with respect to the broader policy framework, the provincial policy statement promotes efficient use of land uses and resources, and mix of uses and densities, and facilitates intensification in compact form. And the proposed development strives to achieve these objectives. On the next slide is our excerpt from the growth plan. Growth plan requires efficient use of infrastructure, a diverse mix of uses and housing options, and a compact built form and vibrant public realm. And again, proposed development is intended to conform to these policies. The next slide includes excerpts from the Region Appeal Official Plan. It also requires efficient use of services and infrastructure, pedestrian-friendly and transit-supported development, and a mix of housing for all stages of life. And the proposed development is intended to conform to these policies. The City of Brampton Official Plan also contains policies for its executive housing areas, which includes the need for design to protect and promote natural heritage features, creating a strong community identity, character, and sense of place, implementing high urban design of buildings in the public realm through enhanced landscaping, open space, architectural character, and entrance features, and creating a strong and appropriate edge treatment along the road network. And finally, on the final slide, the proposal is intended to align with the policy framework through achieving a compact built form, supporting the efficient use of infrastructure and services, aligning with the density objectives of the province, the region, and local planning policies, achieving a mix of housing options, and maintaining an upscale character within the executive housing area. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe, City Clerk, now you have delegations.
Yes, the next delegation is Huang Nguyen. You can please unmute your microphone and address the committee.
Hi, so my name is Hong Nok Nguyen. I'm a homeowner very nearby to this proposed development. My main concern is traffic and congestion. Right now on Mayfield, it's 1 lane. There's trucks and traffic every day. If I go south bound, I hit Countryside, and at Countryside and McVean, it takes me literally maybe 15 minutes to make a left turn for traffic. So McVean, if you go from Bovaird all the way north to Mayfield, there's only 1 lane going either direction. That's not enough to sustain this much population growth. And the Mayfield and Countryside, there's not enough roadways for us to get out. So I'm very concerned about the traffic congestion. When I had purchased my home, originally I was told that this would be all executive detached single homes. So I'm very surprised to know that this very, very densely populated development was, planned for or proposed for this space. So that's one of my main concerns. It doesn't really match with the rest of the area. North of us, that's all like detached homes. This whole area is supposed to be executive detached homes. So I'm not really understanding how this would actually fit with what we currently have. So that's my main concern. And I'm also concerned about the amenities as well. Schools for children. My children are going to be attending school with that. It might be too much of a crowding for schools. So there's for public and Catholic or private schools, the parks. So I just don't think that this is a right fit for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Rajiv Sani. Please proceed, Rajiv.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rajiv Sani. I live in the neighborhood within 240 meters of this area. First of all, I would like to thank City for giving me a chance to present my points in front of Honorable Council and the developer too. First of all, I'm quite disappointed this meeting is being conducted in the peak of pandemic, which is this month of the year. But anyhow, as per my previous discussion, they say the business has to continue. So initially the plan was in this area was to build a low density. Builder has submitted the change of land use, which I think so doesn't make any sense to be built in the area of estate home. That too on a piece of land that is surrounded by all the estate homes. They are building 5-story apartment building, then they are building stacked townhomes. So around they are building 204 homes, that too in a very limited and a congested space. Builder intentions, I don't have to specify what builder intentions are here. Everyone can understand. I don't want to make the words more clear by making a change of land use, what clearly the builder intentions are at the cost of theme of the area, the environment, safety of the people, ecology of the area. One point I want to lay down, everyone in Brampton resident is clear of the accident that happened at Torbram and Countryside, where we lost 3 young innocent lives and a woman. So we don't want this to happen in this area again, because this Mayfield, everyone is aware that it's a bypass road for all the trucks. Every trucks here go. I'm too afraid to send my wife to take this road to go to the work, right? Despite she's safe few kilometers, we save on gas. I don't want to send her to Mayfield. No, that's a restricted land, which I will not allow my wife to go. I'm too much worried on after that accident happened, right? We are already lacking a lot of infrastructure in Brampton, especially in this area. So building a high population, 2 or 4 homes, we are saying, if you multiply it by 2, I assume that minimum in 2 or 4, there will be 2 residents which will be staying. Minimum 2. 400 people, and the opening of that area is on a dangerous road, deadly road, that is a Mayfield road. Can city avoid the trucks on this land, this road? I don't think so that city can say no truck road on this area. It will be only peaceful area. Will that area will not have any kids on that one? You are just making that area on a road. Kids will be there in that area or not? Only for old age it has to be there or not? So it's not at all safe to be building the homes in that area. This area was estate area. Currently, there are not even a single semi and town home in the area. And this falls in a Y-shaped area. People have already paid the premium. I myself had paid the high premium to move into this area because I wanted, like the estate home area, I want to live and enjoy my life where I'm staying at. Moving here, paying high premium, who is making benefit? City is making benefit. You can ask why the city is making benefit, because I paid high premium, the cost increase. Now, when city calculates property taxes, okay, the cost of the home, the area of the home, pay this much taxes. I am already paying such a heavy taxes, and you make me sit another piece of 400 people on my head, which I don't like it, right? So why I moved an area, why I'm paying? Now, if I again move to some area in the Brampton, again, the cost is that so high that I have to again pay high taxes to the city, right? I don't want to jump on taxes and taxes and taxes. So that's what I want to say. So the goal, I know the goal is, the city goal is there, and I heard from the developer that the goal of the city is to have a high density there, but it is not at the stake of the life of the people, environment, safety, ecology of the people, right? We need to understand where we are living and where we want to build in. Everything cannot be built in front of Buckingham Palace or in front of Ottawa Parliament, right? There is some theme, there is some ecology. 408 people in an area. How much animals can survive there? The small animals, the birds, the other animals that come around, right? How many animals can come around that area, right? You're spoiling the ecology, right? Deforestation is happening. What is happening? Animals are running out. There is less ecology. Environment is changing. You're just putting out and pushing the people in a small area. Canada is biggest country. You only have this land to build townhomes. You don't have any other area in Canada to build the area. So this land also falls under TRCA. And what I got information that TRCA has already rejected the application for this one. They have advised to resubmit the application. So it will spoil the green belt. Secondly, it's on a high traffic area, which I have already explained. So moreover, the biggest concern is the safety and the infrastructure. We don't have schools currently. My daughter goes to a neighbor school. It's not in the school, it's a bus drive. And everyone knows, and city is well aware how many schools, how many complexes, how many parks we are having it. So we strongly object on behalf of Wales of Humber. This project should never come here. Canada is the biggest country. There are enough land to be developed. That's from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jatvinder Sodhi. Go ahead, Mr. Sodhi.
Yes, please. Thank you, the chair and the members of the council. Peter Fay, can you please add the petitions to the delegation? There were 2 petitions submitted. One was in March, around 400 signatures. Another one we did it just last week with 400 signatures of the residential area, of the particular area. I was wondering, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, even this year, even pandemic, I personally have delegated to the city of Brampton, to the region of Peel, to the Peel Police Board, every year that the Mayfield is a dangerous road. We don't feel safe, and heavy traffic and lack of infrastructure, which unfortunately this council or the members who represent at the region of Peel have completely declined our request, even though around 4 million plus we contribute every year the taxes to the city of Brampton, where our council members and the staff, all salaries and lavish perks been enjoyed. This land, particularly Y-shaped, particular small piece of land, which is from Gordon Randall, it's 15-20 steps away. And this is under TRCA, which is keywords. I'm only speaking the keywords of a TRCA, Greenbelt and Ravine area. And this land should have been investigated first, that the application of this builder has to be reviewed by TRCA and other governing agencies. This is destroying the ecology of the particular area. Next one is the petition we already speak, lack of infrastructure. I think none of the council members don't know Jatvinder Sodhi, Homeowners Welfare Association, Concerned Resident of Brampton, who have been delegating consistently year by year. Unfortunately, not much results, but practically we have shaken the city doors every year, multiple times, on infrastructure, on employment opportunities, on transit, on these issues. This particular area is lacking all those opportunities, which is not there. There's no employment opportunities. There is no proper transit. And we have been working with our councillors. Unfortunately, the delivery is poor. There's no park. And on top of it, you are building another 400 houses plus how many people going to be at least in this particular area. And the other one is that this is a state area. Everyone, including myself, we have paid a heavy premium. Is the builder, developer, is going to compensate our cost, which we overpaid for just living in a peaceful area, or the city of Brampton will compensate that cost, which we have paid? And there is none building application. There is a development happening just another block away, where there is a detached homes. We have no issues with whatsoever if you're building a detached homes, which has been designated. It's a state executive area, and this will destroy the beauty of Brampton. Will destroy the beauty of executive shape of this Brampton. And also, a few things I would include on top of it is when these state homes were developed. 2016, I have delegated on regarding the walkway in the middle of driveway. I purposely put a picture of this house where I live today, so people understand, city council and the region of Peel understand, these council representatives would understand what the consequences we are facing. If you acted in 2016, we shouldn't be facing what we are facing today, embarrassment, having a house without a parking. And you're going to be adding more congestion in the area. If it's in Queen Street, where we have better infrastructure, we would have supported that project. Land transfer is normal here. On Gore and Highway, Gore and Queen Street, 25 acres got transferred. And stackable townhouses will not be acceptable. Building big capital letter no in bold red color. So our humble request to this council is consider the TRCA, consider the petitions of the residential area. We haven't gone out to social media or anywhere else to approach. And the recent safety concerns, as I mentioned, the delegations we have been submitting year by year, month by month, robberies, no police presence, no police station in this. Never ever this council, never ever the city of Brampton look at to providing the basic necessities to the Brampton residents, which they deserve, which they have their right on them, have not been provided. The other thing has been done in this peak of pandemic, you force this meeting on the head of the residents who are already under stress, already in trouble. This Brampton East, Brampton itself, Peel region is under stress. We have been, numerous emails have been sent by Rajiv Sani, myself and others. Guess what? Neither the mayor nor any council member, none of you have responded back, acknowledged.
Thank you, Mr. Sodi. It's 5 minutes. 5 minutes are up. Do you want to just end very quickly?
We completely decline this proposal of developer. It doesn't fit in any case with this particular residential area. And you're gonna have how many on the, like say Gordon Randall, you're gonna have a traffic light, 100%. Then you're gonna 10 steps away, you're gonna give another traffic lights. Then there is another development coming in that also requires the traffic lights. Between McQueen and Gordon Randall, there will be 3 traffic lights more required to compensate, which is undoable, and we need heavy traffic moved out of Mayfield Road. I drive every day because Brampton has no employment opportunities.
Mr. Sodi, thank you very much. It's been 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much. If you have anything else to add, feel free to send in communication to staff, and we'll make sure we incorporate it when we're considering this application. Our next delegation, City Clerk.
Delegation.
Thank you. The next speaker is Nitin Arora. Please proceed. Nitin, your microphone is unmuted. You can address the committee. So, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, it looks like Nitin's microphone is not active at the moment. I'm just going to put him back on mute, and maybe we'll come back to him, and we'll go on to the next speaker, which is Balahar Singh. Balahar, please go ahead to address the committee.
Hi, thanks everyone for giving us the opportunity to speak here. I think so, Rajiv, Jaswinder, and everyone has covered maximum part, but for me, it's basically first thing is I couldn't understand how cities agree. Like before, it's a 54 family houses you guys have to create it. Now city is creating a 204. It's a 4 times more in a, I think so it's a 204 square feet, something like that, a meter square place. How it's a 4-time increase? What logic city has used or builder has used to get into 4 times more houses on 4 times more families into a small area, correct? And traffic congestions, everything we already discussed, Jaswinder and Rajiv already speak up. And second one of the point is, like we already, Jaswinder and they mentioned that when we bought it, builder told us like, oh, these houses are costly because because these are the estate homes, you guys are getting all detached homes, all those marketing strategies, correct? Now, for me, it's now the builder is doing a cheating. For me, I'm just clearly sad because now I'm telling you, builder will sell these townhouses or those things. They will say, oh, these houses are in the middle of estate homes, and you guys like townhouses and everything has to pay more. So basically, for me, it's a builder is playing a game with every people in the citizens of Canada itself, as well as in the Brampton area. Like we are paying high taxes, everything paying, but the whole benefit is to everyone knows to who is getting the benefit from there, correct? Because they are saying one time they are saying something, after a few years they will ask something again to get the high cost houses to sell it, correct? And Rajiv covered one of the biggest point is like the loss of 3 young kids and one of the lady, correct? One of the family member. I think so if the city has a heart, they have to think about the security on this part. Otherwise, I think so more life will be gone. I think so is it the city should be responsible for that? These are the things I think so the city has to consider. So for me also, I'm strongly condemn this building. Like city has to keep the same plan for the 54 homes. So not to make these changes again. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sanket Radadia. Please proceed.
Good evening, all councillors and all the attendees. I would like to request that this change of land use is not accepted due to safety concerns, which most of them were raised by the speakers ahead of me. I would like to mainly reiterate the promises that were made when we bought the houses of premium prices, and many of my neighbors would also agree that we've moved here to avoid congestions and traffic jams, and also a safe, quiet environment away from the city, and that's why we moved here. And now we are making a congestion back over here with not enough infrastructure, especially with the roads and the traffic lights, etc., not planned too well to sustain the high number of residents and vehicles. So just for that, I would think it would not make sense for development of the 204 additional homes that the developer is proposing. And I think it's a pretty straightforward decision from my perspective that this will just create more safety concerns, as people mentioned that there'll be accidents. There's a potential of accidents, and because I've seen during constructions on Mayfield Road, east of McQueen and Mayfield intersection, where they were installing water pipes or whatnot. So there was more traffic on Gordon Randall with trucks and more cars coming, which is also safety concern just in terms of construction over there. So if we have even more additional homes and more people living there, there'll be more traffic on the smaller roads where there's like parks with small children playing around, and that can lead to further accidents. And as there were examples presented on how there were like deaths of kids or whatnot. So I'm afraid more could happen if we let this development proceed. So again, just to conclude, I'm against the proposal that is for the change of land use. So I would really request to reject this proposal. And thank you very much for all your time and consideration.
Thank you. And I'll go back now to Nitin Arora. You can please unmute your mic, Nitin, to address the committee. Please go ahead, Nitin. I see you've unmuted your microphone. So, Mr. Chair, it appears we may have some connection issues with Nitin.
Okay, so
Please go ahead. Nitin, can you hear us here at the city?
okay, then we'll just move on while we wait for the resident to make a connection. Is there other delegations proceeding?
That is it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I do see Councillor Dillon, I believe, requested to speak, and then I have Councillor Singh. So Councillor Dillon, and just a reminder to all councillors, today we're not here debating the merits of the proposal. We're simply asking questions for clarification. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Councillor. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I have a question for staff and for the person that gave the presentation. Who would be speaking to first? Hello? Councilor Medeiros.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry. I asked a question. I think it didn't go through. I wanted to know. I have a question for the applicant and staff as well. Who would we ask first?
You would, whoever you want to get your clarification from.
So I'll ask the applicant first. Firstly, thanks for the presentation. In regards to, staff had noted in the report, they said staff had noted the following specific considerations that will be addressed. And one point was clarification is required with respect to how the proposed development satisfies the general intent of the executive residential and executive transition residential designation of the official plan. So in regards to that, in satisfying these requirements, you had mentioned a couple of things. One was the advanced landscape design. If you can elaborate on that a little further as well. You also mentioned high quality business materials. I was wondering if you can define what that means as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Dillon. So with respect to this proposed development, the applicant has submitted an urban design brief in addition to the landscape drawings as well as elevation drawings. So the urban design brief will speak to the advanced urban design features, high quality landscape design, as well as high quality urban design that will need to be ensured as part of the review.
So when you mean, can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more when you say urban design? Can you be a little bit more specific what you mean by that? Does that mean the materials? Does that mean the actual design itself? What does that mean?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, Alan Parsons here. Perhaps we can ask Jason Afonso to provide some details for Councillor Dillon with his questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dillon. Yeah, with respect to urban design encompasses a variety of features, both architectural and landscape. So when we refer to upscale urban design or high quality urban design, it's really the complete package. So it includes the architectural style, the amount of emphasis placed on the treatment of the facade, the building materials. It also includes landscape features. So things like special paving materials, using pavers as opposed to concrete or asphalt is an option. Providing entry features. These are elements that would contribute to the creation of an upscale, and executive design treatment.
So these are features that could possibly satisfy it. And so, but when we speak about this specific area itself, would I think there's a request to rezone. Would these particular dwellings and the proposed density be permissible in this area as of right now?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, no. So the applicant has applied for an official plan amendment to establish a special policy area. Within the executive housing policy within the Brampton official plan, it does allow for a range of singles. It also allows for certain townhouses, but because of the apartment building, we are proposing it to be included within a special policy area. And the reason for that is, again, recognizing some of the provincial policy directions about providing range and mix and range of housing. We felt that there would be an opportunity at this location to provide for different housing types, but continuing to meet some of the upscale design objectives.
Sorry, staff was able to decide that you could look into that, or was that something that the applicant has proposed?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Dillon, Alan Parsons here. So Councillor Dillon, the application is made. Staff are reviewing the application now. We will be reporting back to committee at a later point in time, subsequent to the completion of our technical review and our consideration for all the comments that are received. So
I understand that, Alan, but I'm just saying he had mentioned that staff had, his staff. I'm assuming the staff has already not made a decision, but has shown interest in it. I'm just wondering if that's the case in this, when the application was submitted, or if that's something that staff has already decided that's a direction that they want to go with this area.
Yeah, and through you again, Mr. Chairman, through the Councillor Dillon, the staff has not made any decision on this matter at this point in time. We continue to consider what is provided through to us and consider it against all the policy and legislative framework. No decisions made at this point in time.
Okay. So are you speaking to any new policies that have been put in place by the province? Is there anything new that or is it still the previous policies that we're basing this application on? Existing ones.
Councillor Dillon, it is all the existing policies. The previous changes to the legislative framework. Really, we've had some discussion with council, previously on some of those things, but in the quite recent times, there have been no major particular changes to speak of. That's really the current framework is what we're applying here.
Right. And can the existing or any recent policy changes override a decision that council's made in terms of what's to be zoned here or its official plan, or can they circumvent it?
So, yeah, Councillor Dillon, and again through you, Mr. Chairman, the policies of the legislation really apply really at the time of the application. So the staff are reviewing all those at this point in time. Right at this point in time, there's no deviations really between really our plans and policies to speak to. So the whole range of legislation and city and regional policy that we're reviewing.
So I can, perhaps me and you can have a discussion on that after, just in terms of the policy. But the second question I have in regards to staff, just to get an understanding of the area itself in general. There was another application that was made which staff did not support, which was on the southeast side of Mayfield. I'm just wondering what the rationale was for that particular application as to why there wouldn't be homes allowed there. So I'm just trying to take a holistic view at that specific area and just trying to figure out, what staff is actually looking for, which direction staff would like to, what direction staff is looking at in terms of this area, Mayfield and McLean.
Yeah, and through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Dillon, staff would be happy to sit down with yourselves and Councillor Singh as the area councillors to talk about really the legislation and really the considerations that staff generally have, and really the thoughts with staff really as we're looking at this application in particular, and really share some of our ideas through to you. But at this point in time, Councillor, I'm not so aware of the other site that you're referencing, but by all means we can sit down and have a discussion about it and try to draw some parallels between the two applications.
Right. So I believe it was about 23. The applicant, it's a commercial area right now, and the applicant there had wanted, I think, is up 23 detached homes. So I think it's important for the residents to know. If you feel that it's better for an offline conversation, we can definitely have that, and any information received, we can relay that to the residents. There's been quite a few of them that have reached out. And so the last question is this: there's a traffic. I'm assuming the applicants will be doing a traffic study, but there's still the Peel. So it's Peel Regional Road, which is Mayfield. That's going to be. Can you give an idea actually when that's going to be widened in that certain sector?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Dillon, Alan here. Councillor, I don't have that information with me at this point in time. If it is that Himanshu Katyal, the planner on the file, or Cynthia Owusu, if they have information relating to the date when it's expected for this segment of Mayfield to be redone, then by all means you can hear that. But myself, I don't have that information.
Right, and the reason I ask is just so we're ensuring that any studies that are done are done with the full breadth of information, and taking into account any changes that are going to be happening on Mayfield as well. To the south, there's also a proposed school as well that'll have a few hundred parents and a lot more traffic that's going to be coming up Mayfield as well. So some of the residents have concerns with that and expressed their interest in knowing if all of that will be taken into account. So I don't have any more questions, but those questions I did ask that you weren't able to answer, I'll be sure to take those up offline with you. And again, any information that we get from there, I'll be sure to pass it on to the residents for the information. Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Dillon. Our next speaker is Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions for clarification. The first being, I just want to make sure, because I know it's tough to attend these meetings for residents, that we're properly capturing their comments. So just wanted to add for the September 1st, 2020 virtual community meeting, I didn't see it in the notes, but the natural heritage was also relayed that day too as a major concern. It was mostly talked about TRCA lands and the environment. I have that in my notes. I just want to make sure that we capture in our notes here that the community is concerned about the natural heritage system, and they were concerned on that day as well. So I hope staff will make those changes.
Through to Mr. Chairman, through to you, Councillor Singh. Indeed, we will, Councillor. Indeed.
Thank you. And secondly, I heard from the residents, and I know some of them are listening. So I know, Peter, you added 2 petitions, but I heard there were 3 petitions, 2 of approximately over 400 people. Himanshu, can you confirm you have 3 different sets of petitions? If you don't, then I can ensure that they are captured within our minutes and agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we received a petition in March, and we received 2 petitions now. And one of the petitions that we received included about 500 residents, and that email noted that it was an updated petition. So that email includes the previous reference to the previous March 2020 petition and the new updated petition that was provided. And in addition to that, there was a petition on a piece of paper that was also provided.
Okay, yep, and that was from myself as well. So, okay, if there's any miscommunication on the petitions, the residents can reach out to myself or Councillor Dillon. I just want to make sure we're capturing all the petitions. And my last question is, given the issue of Mayfield being a trucking route as well, and in the future it might include more truck traffic, will we be consulting with the Region of Peel as well with the goods movement and making sure that we're looking at future truck traffic as well?
Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Singh, Alan here. So yes, Councillor, we do where we have development applications that are adjacent to regional roadways in particular, and really many other application types as well. We do reach out to the Region of Peel to solicit their comments, and so we will be receiving those, and including all of the various comments that the region has for us with the recommendation reports, and we'll be sharing that through to yourself and Councillor Dillon and others.
All right, thank you. Those were my questions.
Mr. Chair,
Thank
it's
you.
Peter.
Yes.
We have made the connection with Nitin Arora. So Nitin, I'm just going to unmute your microphone. And Mr. Chair, he should have his opportunity to address committee.
Yep, go ahead. Thank you very much for connecting, and you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nitin. Nitin, your mic is now live. So you can address the committee. Nitin, please go ahead. Go ahead, Nitin, your mic is on. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we've tried the connection. His mic is active and it's been unmuted, but we're not hearing anything. Okay, thank you very much. And I do not see any further speakers. Councillor Dillon, would you be okay to move receipt of the delegations and staff report?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Dillon to approve the staff report recommendations and receive the delegations 6.2 and correspondence 11.2. That the report titled Information Report Application to the Amended Official Plan, Zoning Bylaw and Proposed Draft Plan of Subdivision Glenshire and Associates, Georgian Mayfield Incorporated, Sterling Chase Incorporated, 6875, 6889 Mayfield Road, Ward 10. That Planning, Building and Economic Development staff be directed to report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and the staff recommendations subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application, a comprehensive evaluation of the proposal, that the following correspondence application to amend the official plan, zoning bylaw, and proposed draft plan of subdivision, Glenshire Associates, Georgia Mayfield, file OZS 219-0014 to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16th, be received, and the list of delegations so noted in the motion. The list of delegations. Is there anyone who opposed this motion? No. So passed, and statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. Our next item is item 5.2, Ward 5, regarding an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw. I will ask the clerk if we received any submissions or requests to delegate to committee on this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no from the public, but the applicant, David Riley, would like to address the committee after the staff presentation.
Okay, so duly noted. So I'll hand this over to Mr. Freeman, our development planner from the Planning, Building, and Economic Development. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Committee, members of the public. My name is Kevin Freeman, and I'm the city planner assigned to the review of this application before you today. This is an application submitted by TechnoArc Architects and Designers on behalf of Chatrath Holdings, Inc., proposing to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw for the properties municipally known as 1466 and 1478 Queen Street West and 9021 and 9025 Credit View Road. The purpose of the meeting this evening is to share details of the application with members of the public and to receive feedback. Any comments from the public that are received will be considered and addressed in a future recommendation report to Planning and Development Services Committee. To provide some context with respect to site location, the property is located at the northeast corner of Queen Street West and Credit View Road within Ward 5. The site has a total area of approximately 0.57 hectares and a frontage of approximately 43 meters along Queen Street West and 43 meters along Credit View Road. The site is currently occupied by 4 single detached dwellings and accessory structures that are proposed to be demolished. The surrounding lands are comprised primarily of single detached dwellings. To the immediate east of the site is an existing day nursery, and to the north of the site is a property subject to a site plan application to construct a 3-story private elementary school. Sorry, next slide, please. As you can see there to the south is an existing residential subdivision, and to the west is executive residential housing. Next slide, please. As noted, this is an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit a mixed-use development consisting of 3 3-story buildings, each with commercial uses on the ground floor and residential units occupying the 2nd and 3rd floor of each building. I would just like to note that an initial statutory public meeting for this application was held back in November of 2018 to present the applicant's proposal to develop the lands for commercial purposes to permit 2 1-story commercial buildings. The applicant has since revised their development proposal to incorporate a residential component constituting a mixed-use development. The applicant is proposing a total of 14 commercial units with a combined commercial gross floor area of approximately 1,400 square meters and 14 residential units with a combined residential gross floor area of approximately 2,700 square meters. The applicant is seeking permissions to permit a range of commercial land uses, including an office, retail uses, personal service shop, and a restaurant, just to name a few. The site is proposed to contain a total of 66 parking spaces and access to be provided by way of a restricted right-in, right-out access to Queen Street and a full loop access to Credit View Road. The site is proposed to be developed with a building configuration and orientation that does not preclude the future development of the corner property or a built form that is compatible with the proposed land use. Next slide, please. And sorry, just one more there. Thank you. A public notice was sent out to all property owners within a 240-meter radius of the subject site. A notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and posted on the city's website. Next slide, please. I would also just like to note that prior to a recommendation report proceeding to Planning Committee and Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the Region Appeal official plan, as well as the City of Brampton official plan, including the Credit Valley secondary plan. Next slide. To provide some context with respect to planning framework and applicable policy, the property is designated residential in the official plan. The residential designation permits predominantly residential land uses, including a full range of dwelling types ranging from single detached housing to high-rise apartments. Complementary uses, including commercial land uses, may also be permitted, subject to specific secondary plan policies or designations. Next slide, please. This site is currently designated residential Springbrook settlement area in the Credit Valley Secondary Plan. The Springbrook settlement area is a historical crossroad hamlet associated with the agricultural settlement of the area. The designation permits limited service commercial, village crafts, and home workshops in the form of a low intensity and low density development that is in keeping with the scale and character of the historic hamlet. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the proposed mixed-use development. The site is identified as Springbrook Special Study Area on the approved Springbrook Community Block Plan for Area 45-2. The Springbrook settlement area is identified as a historically settled community with the potential for infill development and enhancement of the hamlet. A city-initiated official plan amendment was recently approved by Council to implement new policy framework for the Springbrook settlement area. The corresponding tertiary plan for Springbrook is intended to serve as a comprehensive land use plan to ensure that redevelopment within Springbrook is of a scale and build form that is compatible with the existing land uses. These lands, including additional lands along Queen Street West, were previously included within the limits of the Springbrook Tertiary Plan. However, were removed at the request of Council for staff to explore opportunities for the potential of adding more density and height along Queen Street West. Next slide, please. The properties are currently zoned Residential Hamlet 1, which permits a single detached dwelling, group home, place of worship, public or private school, a nursing home, and a greenhouse or nursery. As such, an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to permit the proposed mixed-use development. To highlight some technical considerations for the review of the application moving forward, staff will review the appropriateness of the proposed land use, the impacts on the existing adjacent low-density residential land use, the feasibility of the proposed site accesses on Queen Street and Credit View Road, the integration and feasibility of the proposed phasing plan, and staff will evaluate the building height and density relative to the context of the surrounding area and the new vision for the Springbrook settlement area. Next slide, please. With respect to next steps for this application moving forward, staff will continue to review the application, including comments from the public, and will advance a final recommendation report to Council at a later date. Issues raised through the review of the application will be addressed in the future recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have expressed interest in the application and have provided verbal and/or written comments. Next slide, please. And lastly, I would just like to note that the information report, presentation slides, and application material may be found on the city's website following tonight's meeting. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, David Riley is present on behalf of the application, and Mr. Riley, you can address the committee now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Committee, and Peter for unmuting me and bringing me in. And thanks, Kevin, for your presentation. If we could just go to slide 4 in Kevin's presentation, the one that shows the proposal as the heading. Be a good visual. Perfect, thank you. So Kevin covered off in his presentation the details of the proposal. I just wanted to highlight a few things. As Kevin mentioned, this application has changed since it was originally submitted. Originally, the lands were proposed for commercial uses only in 2 separate buildings, and each of those buildings were proposed at 1 story. So following the first public meeting and after discussions with staff, the proposal has changed considerably in response to comments received. So first of all, this is now a mixed use development with both commercial and residential uses proposed. The proposed built form has changed considerably as well, from a 1-story building or 2 1-story buildings to 3 3-story buildings. So commercial uses at grade will be located at grade and 2-story residential units above. So this provides for additional housing options within the Springbrook area. These would be good size units. You know, preliminary designs show that these would be 3-bedroom units. From an urban design perspective, the proposed development, it's really been designed to frame both Queen Street and Credit View, providing for that pedestrian-oriented development and creating an attractive street wall along the street with articulated building facades. Landscaping is proposed along the streets and along the property lines abutting adjacent properties, so you have that buffering there. And also, looking to the future, the proposed development can be integrated with the future development or the future redevelopment of that corner property. And you can see the concept for that property ghosted in, which would continue that street wall along both Queen and Credit View, getting at those higher buildings and higher densities that perhaps council was looking for in this area. So I just wanted to say that we're looking forward to continuing working with staff on this proposal, and I'm happy to take any comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone on the board. Okay, Councillor Vicente, would you be okay to move and receive the application?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have here a motion moved by Councillor Vicente to approve the staff report recommendations and applicant delegation, that the report titled Information Report Application to amend the Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw, TechnoArch Architects and Designers, Chatrath Holdings Incorporated, 1466 and 1478 Queen Street West and 921, 925 Credit View Road, Ward 5, dated October 23rd to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16th, 2020 be received, and the Planning and Development Services staff be directed to report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and a staff recommendation subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application and comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, so statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. We now go on to item 5.3, application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit a 9-story apartment building with commercial uses at grade. Glenn Schnarr and Associates on behalf of GC and Giant Investments Limited, 185-187 Queen Street East, Ward 3. I will ask the clerk if we have received any submissions or requests to delegate to committee on this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, none from the public, but the applicant from Glen Schnarr, Vanessa DeVelter, will be doing a presentation after the staff presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe it's Mr. Freeman again. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening once again, members of the Planning Committee and members of the public. My name is Kevin Freeman, and I'm the city planner assigned to the review of this application before you today. This is an application submitted by Glenn Schnarr and Associates on behalf of GC Jane Investments Limited to amend the zoning bylaw for the properties municipally known as 185 and 187 Queen Street East. The purpose of the meeting this evening is to share details on the application with members of the public and to receive feedback. Any comments from the public that are received tonight will be considered and addressed in a future recommendation report to Planning and Development Services Committee. To provide some context with respect to the site location, the property is located east of Center Street, west of Kennedy Road, on the south side of Queen Street East within Ward 3. The site has a total area of approximately 0.16 hectares with a frontage of approximately 40 meters along Queen Street East. The site is currently vacant with an existing full moves access to Queen Street East. To the east of the site is an existing single detached dwelling, and beyond is a 31-story mixed-use building that is currently under construction. To the south of the property are existing single detached dwellings fronting John Street, and to the west of the site is an existing place of worship and a 2-story commercial building. Next slide, please. As noted, this is an application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit a mixed-use development consisting of a 9-story apartment building with commercial uses at grade. The applicant is proposing a total of 4 commercial units at ground level and a total of 80 residential units comprised of 32 1-bedroom units and 48 2-bedroom units. The development proposal is representative of a density of approximately 500 units per net hectare and a floor space index of 6.85. The applicant is proposing 2 levels of underground parking, consisting of a total of 43 parking spaces, and is proposing to maintain the existing full moves access along Queen Street East. This access will ultimately be restricted to right in, right out. in the future once the BRT lanes have been constructed along Queen Street East. Next slide, please. In accordance with the policies of the official plan, the applicant was required to submit a tertiary plan in support of the development proposal to identify a land use plan for the strategic development of the block bounded by Queen Street East, Torham Street, John Street, and Truman Street. A virtual public consultation session was held on August 27th of this year to review and discuss the tertiary plan with the affected landowners, applicant, and city staff. The tertiary plan will need to be finalized through consultation with city staff and participating landowners to establish a development pattern for the entirety of the block. The tertiary plan will be evaluated based on good planning principles and will be endorsed for inclusion as a non-statutory appendix to the secondary plan prior to the approval of the corresponding development application. A public notice was sent to all property owners for this application within 240 meters of the subject site. A notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and posted on the city's website. I'd just like to note that prior to a recommendation report proceeding to Planning Committee and Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan, the Region Appeal official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, as well as the Queen Street Corridor secondary plan. To provide some context with respect to the planning framework and applicable policy, the property is designated central area in the official plan. A significant portion of the central area within the city, including the subject lands, has been designated by the province as an urban growth center. This is an area that is planned to achieve the highest densities with a minimum density target of 200 persons and jobs combined per hectare by 2031. The Queen Street Corridor is also identified within the official plan as a precinct within the central area that has the potential to transform into a mixed-use, transit-oriented environment. I should also note that the city is currently in the process of completing a land use study and precinct plan for the Queen Street East Corridor to support the implementation of a community planning permit system. In addition, the official plan has designated Queen Street East as a primary intensification corridor and a bus rapid transit corridor. The development proposal is consistent with the central area designation of the official plan, and an amendment to the official plan is not required. The site is located within the Queen Street Corridor secondary plan and is designated central area mixed use, a designation which permits mixed use developments incorporating any combination of commercial, retail, office, residential, open space, and institutional uses. The maximum floor space index, which is generally permitted within the mixed use designation, is 3.5, with a maximum FSI of 2.0 permitted for residential uses. The policy states that an increase beyond the maximum coverage specified within the mixed use designation will require a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. The proposal is generally consistent with the policies of the secondary plan, and as such, an amendment to the secondary plan is not required. The properties are zoned to future development section 3453, which only permits uses that legally existed on the date that the bylaw came into effect. The development of new buildings or structures along with the addition of existing buildings is not permitted within the FD zone. Therefore, an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed mixed-use development. To highlight some technical considerations for the review of the application moving forward, staff will review the appropriateness of the proposed land uses contemplated for the tertiary plan, and will also complete an evaluation of the proposed building setbacks and transition to the surrounding area. With respect to next steps for this application moving forward, staff will continue to review the application, including comments from the public, and will advance a final recommendation report to council at a later date. Issues raised through the review of the application will be addressed in the future recommendation report, and staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have expressed interest in the application and have provided verbal and/or written comments. Next slide, please. And lastly, I would just like to note that the information report, presentation slides, and application materials may be found on the city's website following tonight's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my presentation this evening.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, we'll turn it over now to Vanessa DeVelter, and Vanessa will just pull up your presentation here momentarily.
Good evening, members of council. and members of the public. My name is Vanessa DeVelter, and I'm the planning consultant with Runsharn and Associates, Inc. Planning consultants on behalf of GC Jane Investments Limited for the development application known as 185, 187 Queen Street East in the city of Brampton. I'd like to provide a brief overview of our development proposal, and I'm available to answer any questions or comments related to the application. Next slide, please. As Kevin previously mentioned, the development application is comprised of two municipal parcels of record, noted as 185, 187 Queen Street East. The subject property is located south of Queen Street East, north of John Street, and east of Truman Street in the city of Brampton. The surrounding area is predominantly comprised of low-density residential uses and commercial uses. There are several active development applications, including one north of our site for planned high-density mixed-use development. Next slide, please. So as Kevin previously mentioned, the subject property is designated central area in the official plan, further designated central area mixed use in the Queen Street Corridor secondary plan. The central area is envisioned for high density development supported by existing public transit infrastructure and pedestrian walkways. Next slide, please. The subject property is currently zoned future development special section 3453. In order to permit redevelopment on the subject property, a zoning bylaw amendment is required. Our proposed application proposes to rezone the site to downtown commercial 1 or the DC1 zone. Relief is required to the zoning bylaw to for reduced front yard setbacks, and exterior and interior side yard setbacks, maximum lot coverage, landscaped open space, and a reduction in parking. Next slide, please. So as previously noted, the proposal includes a 9-story mixed-use development comprised of 4 commercial units located at grade and 8 commercial units located above, including 80 residential units. Access is proposed through full moves on Queen Street East. However, our submitted study does note a potential right-in, right-out access can be supported in order for residents to pull into the underground parking. It is anticipated that commercial users accessing the units at grade will either be located on the subject property as residents in the building, or will access the property on foot, by bicycle, or through existing public transit infrastructure. The proposed parking rate is 0.5 spaces per unit, with an additional 3 surplus spaces for a total of 43 spaces. Next slide, please. The proposed vote form emphasizes a podium-style development, showcasing terraces front and rear of the property. Underground parking is located internal to the site and flushed to emphasize the streetscape along Queen Street and highlight the commercial units at grade. Next slide, please. As part of our development application, we submitted a tertiary plan. The plan outlined how our subject property, noted in red, would interface with the adjacent development parcels, specifically related to density, built form, and open spaces and linkages. On August 24th, we conducted a public consultation session with adjacent landowners where we presented this plan and received feedback. As part of our resubmission, we will be using that feedback along with feedback from staff in order to inform any revisions required to the tertiary plan. Next slide, please. So in closing, our development application is consistent with existing provincial, regional, and local planning policy with respect to the urban growth area and the central area. Our proposed mixed-use development does have access to existing public transit infrastructure, such as Brampton Go, and is located in an area capable to manage intensification. The additional 80 residential units will contribute to the city's housing supply and support the development of the Queen Street corridor. Our proposed tertiary plan conforms with existing planning policy and is located in an appropriate location capable to absorb growth. Thank you very much, and if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any questions. I do have Councillor Bowman. Thank you for moving a motion to approve the staff recommendations and applicant delegation. A motion which reads as the report titled Information Report Application to amend the zoning bylaw, Glenshire and Associates Incorporated, GCJ Investments Limited, 185 and 187 Queen Street East. Ward 3 to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16th be received, that Planning and Development Services staff be directed to report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and staff recommendation subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, the statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. Our next report is item 5.4, application to amend the zoning bylaw by Fifth Avenue Development Group Incorporated with DJK Land Use Planning, 83 Wilson Avenue, 1416 Center Street North, Ward 1. I will ask the clerk if we've received any submissions or requests to delegate to committee on this application.
Mr. Chair, we have not. The agent or applicant for the proponent, is present should there be any questions, but there are no requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. Are there any? So we do have a staff presentation. As there's no one speaking, does anyone from staff, does any counselors want to hear the presentation, or would you just simply like to adjourn it? I'll ask the two counselors in the area, Councilor Vicente, Councilor Santos.
Mr. Chair, if I could, because of the nature of this meeting being a virtual meeting, there may be members of the public interested in this who are watching. Although we've had no requests, so our practice has been during virtual meetings is to proceed with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to be helpful and move it along, but I do understand that. So I'll hand this over to Mr. Caruso, our Central Planner, Planning, Building, Economic Development. Welcome, Mr. Caruso.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and everyone attending this public meeting this evening. My name is Carmen Caruso, and I am the planner assigned to process and review this application to amend the zoning bylaw. The application was submitted by DJK Land Use Planning, Inc. on behalf of Fifth Avenue Development Group, Inc. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information with respect to the proposal and seek feedback on the application. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located just north of Queen Street East on the southeast corner of Center Street North and Wilson Avenue. Next slide, please. This slide shows the types of land uses in the area. Adjacent land uses include low-density residential to the north, east, and west, while commercial land uses are located immediately to the south. In the vicinity, you'll note that the Brampton Cemetery is located northeast of the site, and also on the south side of Queen Street East are commercial and office uses, and currently under construction is a 25-story residential building with ground floor commercial. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing a 9-story apartment building containing 82 units made up of 44 one-bedroom units, 34 two-bedroom units, and 4 three-bedroom units. The development is also proposed. The development is also proposed to include 58 motor vehicle parking spaces. 3 of those are at grade, and 55 are below grade. Also included in the proposal are 73 bicycle parking spaces and 2 one-way access points, an entrance from Center Street North, and an exit to Wilson Avenue. Next slide, please. The property is designated central area in the official plan and is within the urban growth center. Policies in the official plan require growth be concentrated on lands within these designations, accommodating a significant portion of population and employment growth. Lands within the central area and urban growth center are preferred locations for investment and intensification, permitting a full range of office, retail, commercial, and service activities, as well as a range of residential institutional uses. The official plan also shows that this property is located within the outer limits of the Anchor Mobility Hub. Lands within the Anchor Mobility Hub are expected to be developed for transit-supportive densities and a built form designed to foster a pedestrian-friendly environment that accommodates the highest combined people and jobs per hectare within the urban growth center. Buildings within the Anchor Mobility Hub are expected are expected to be designed to achieve a combined floor space index of 4 over the entire area, and buildings are anticipated to be between 4 and 25 stories in height. An amendment to the official plan is not required to facilitate the proposal. Next slide, please. Property is designated central area mixed use in the Queen Street Corridor Secondary Plan. Lands within this designation are intended to accommodate mixed-use developments incorporating any combination of a range of uses, including commercial, retail, office, institutional, and residential. Amendment to the secondary plan is not required to facilitate the proposed residential uses on the property. Next slide, please. The site has a low-density residential zoning attached to it, which permits single detached dwellings, group homes, and places of worship. A site-specific zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit this development. The proposed zoning bylaw submitted by the applicant rezones the site to permit an apartment building and establishes a maximum building height of 9 stories, a maximum of 82 residential units, a maximum floor space index of 4.7, a total motor vehicle parking rate of 0.7 spaces per unit, and a bicycle parking rate of 0.5 spaces per unit. Please note that these are development standards suggested by the applicant and are being reviewed as part of the evaluation of this proposal. Next slide, please. At this time, the following preliminary issues have been noted. First, the appropriateness of the number of parking spaces are to be further evaluated against current parking requirements as well as future parking strategies. Second, there are heritage resources in the vicinity of the site. In what way these will be impacted due to the development of this site will be investigated. And third, the proposal is located in close proximity to Queen Street East, which is an intensification corridor in the official plan, and adjacent to a low-density residential neighborhood. How this proposal is integrated to ensure compatibility with the existing and future land uses will be explored. Next slide, please. This application will be evaluated against existing provincial and municipal policies, including those found in the Planning Act, Provincial Policy Statement, the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of the Peel Official Plan, the City of Brampton Official Plan, and the Queen Street Corridor Secondary Plan. Next slide. This slide outlines the steps that have occurred with respect to the review of this application and where staff is in the evaluation process. A notice of complete application was sent to the applicant on September 25th, 2020, and published in the Brampton Guardian. The application was circulated to city departments and external agencies for comment. The notice of tonight's statutory public meeting under the Planning Act was sent out on October 22nd, 2020, and today we are at the public meeting part of this application. For the next step, staff will continue to evaluate the application by analyzing and evaluating comments that are raised at tonight's meeting, as well as analyzing and evaluating comments that are received from submitted correspondence from residents, city departments, and external agencies. Once a comprehensive review has been completed, staff will prepare a recommendation report for consideration by council. Any issues raised this evening and through the review of the application will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Anyone who has provided their contact information at tonight's meeting or through correspondence relating to this file will be notified before the recommendation report is considered by council. Next slide, please. The report and submitted materials associated with tonight's meeting are available online at www.brampton.ca on the City Hall Meetings and Agendas page. And this presentation will also be available online shortly. Again, my name is Carmen Caruso. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me or the applicant. The contact information is shown on this slide. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I do not see any questions or comments. So I do have a motion here moved by Councillor Santos to approve the staff report recommendations and receive correspondence 11.3. That the report titled Information Report Application to amend the zoning bylaw of 5th Avenue Development Group Incorporated, DJK Land Use Planning 83 Wilson Avenue and 1416 Center Street North, Ward 1, to the Planning Development Committee meeting of November 16th, 2020 be received. That Development Services staff be directed to report back to the Planning Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and a staff recommendation subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application and a comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. that the following correspondence application to amend the zoning bylaw, 5th Avenue Development Group Incorporated, DJK Land Use Planning 83 Wilson Avenue, and 14 and 16 Center Street, North Ward 1, to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16, 2020, be received, and a list of correspondence as listed. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Note, the statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. Our next item is staff report regarding application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit truck parking and outdoor storage of tractor trailers as a temporary use by Blackthorn Development Corporation, file OZS 2020-0024. And I will hand this over to, I believe, City Clerk. Do we have any submissions or requests to delegate to committee on this application?
Mr. Chair, we do, from a Rick Ainsley after the staff presentation from Mark Michniak.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will hand it over to Mr. Michniak to provide a staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Mark Michniak, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Blackthorn Development Corp. On behalf of 2538948 Ontario, Inc. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within Ward 10 in the northeastern part of Brampton. It is located on the south side of Mayfield Road, east of Coleraine Drive. Next slide. The applicant is proposing a temporary outdoor storage facility for trucks and tractor trailers. The development will create 485 truck trailer parking spaces. Zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the proposed temporary use. Next slide. This map shows properties within 240 meters of the proposed development. Owners of these properties would have received notice by direct mail with respect to the proposal. Notice was also given in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the City of Brampton website. Next slide. Surrounding land uses include, to the north, across Mayfield Road, there is vacant lands and agricultural use and single detached dwellings located within the town of Caledon. To the south, vacant lands and agricultural use and single detached dwellings. To the east, 2 single detached dwellings and vacant land and agricultural use. And to the west, vacant lands and agricultural use. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting to permit temporary use of lands for outdoor storage of trucks and tractor trailers, a gravel parking area with drive aisles and maneuvering area to accommodate 485 truck trailer parking spaces, access to Mayfield Road, temporary and mobile office trailer, stormwater management pond, 5-meter vegetated buffer strip, fence and security gate, and an acoustic earth berm. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated industrial, special study area, and corridor protection area in the official plan. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide, please. The property is designated business park and corridor protection area in the Highway 427 Industrial Secondary Plan. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required. Next slide. The subject property is currently zoned agricultural in the zoning bylaw, which only permits agricultural uses in single detached dwellings. An amendment to the zoning bylaw will be required to temporarily permit the proposed use. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located within the GTA West route planning area study area, and the northern portion of the subject lands are located within the preferred route. The GTA West corridor is a proposed 400 series multimodal transportation corridor that extends from Highway 401/407 interchange in the west to Highway 400 in the east. The environmental assessment for the GTA West corridor is expected to be completed by the end of 2022. Staff continue to monitor the progress of the GTA West transportation corridor route planning and environmental assessment study. Any implications that arise through the continued processing of this application will be discussed within the future recommendation report. Next slide. Section 5.10 of the official plan sets out guidelines for adopting a temporary use bylaw to recognize the short-term use of land, buildings, or structures. The city may enact temporary use bylaws for renewable periods of not more than 3 years. Temporary use bylaws may be passed without the necessity of amending the official plan. Section 5.10 also provides a list of criteria that must be satisfied when considering the enactment of a temporary use bylaw. A complete review of these criteria will be undertaken and discussed within the recommendation report. Next slide, please. There are a few issues that staff are monitoring on this file. Considering setback from Mayfield Road, evaluating the proposed development is consistent with the temporary use criteria as set out in the official plan, and considering impact on adjacent existing residential uses. Next slide. This slide shows where staff are in the review of the application. The application has been circulated to city departments as well as other agencies for technical comment. Notice of the public meeting was given to property owners in the vicinity of the property and published in the newspaper and on the city's website. We are now at the public meeting stage. Committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback. After tonight's public meeting, comments received from city departments, agencies, members of the public, and matters raised through the public delegations will be reviewed and evaluated. The proposal will be further assessed against the provincial policy statement, growth plan, regional official plan, and the city's official plan and secondary plan. Once the analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report. The recommendation report will address all matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and other city departments. Anyone that has provided their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by the committee. Once City Council makes a decision on the application, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Mark Mishniak, and my contact information is posted on the screen. Also on screen is contact information for the applicant, Maurizio Regato of Blackthorn Development Corp. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, and I believe to our clerk, we do have a delegation, is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. Rick Ainsley, you can unmute your microphone and address committee.
Good evening. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to comment on the matter pertaining to the file OZS 2020-0024, despite the fact that I am a Caledon citizen. My name is Rick Ainsley. My family and I have lived here for over 50 years at 8260 Mayfield Road in the town of Caledon. My family home is on the north side of Mayfield Road, approximately 50 meters from the property for which 2538948 Ontario Inc., Blackthorn Development Corp. has submitted an application to amend the zoning bylaw and change its land use from farm use to temporary trucking depot designation. Based upon my past and current experiences related to the pollution on my Caledon estate residential property, I have great concerns about mine and my family's health. Contaminants were brought into the area by illegal land use operations that surround our property. These contaminants have had a negative effect on mine and my family's health by causing our well water become so severely contaminated that it has now been condemned, and causing our septic bed to collapse so that it is now inefficient. This type of environmental damage caused by illegal and land use changes exists from Mayfield at Highway 50 and continue west to Airport Road and beyond. As an example of such damage, I cite a current statement of claim, Superior Court file number CV-17-2455, where contamination originated near Mayfield Road and on the Caledon side and the Gore Road. After years of sending many written complaints, making calls and having meetings with many of Caledon's municipal representatives about pollution affecting my family's health and damage to our property caused by nearby neighboring illegal land use. Mayor Thompson, in email one that I've sent, was forced to issue a press release from Caledon to Caledon Enterprise to the public about this matter on December the 9th, 2019, January 23rd, 2020, January 30th, 2020, email to February the 12th, 2020, and October 15th, 2020, November the 12th, 2020, respectively. I've included some links, see links in email 3, as evidence of Caledon's acknowledgement of the problems in the municipality commitment to resolve residents' concerns related to these problems by hiring the appropriate legal authorities and bylaw officials to remedy the situations and take legal action against the illegal operations of trucking companies, owners, and other illegal land use. So I now ask the Planning Committee, can you give me assurances to me and other nearby residents of Brampton and Caledon that all necessary health and safety research has been done or shall be done before final approval of this application? I ask your assurance that the operations of this trucking depot will not add pollution to the area, will not contaminate our water source, and will not affect the floodplains or our protected Oak Ridge Moraine. Your assurance that my family, as well as the other nearby residents of Brampton and Caledon, will not experience an increase in pollution, noise, traffic, or other disturbances to our daily lives. Lastly, I would like to ask the Planning Committee if they have included or will they be including as part of this meeting a request that the environmental assessment, EA, be performed. Will the region of Peel be installing the infrastructure for sewage treatment, drinking water, and stormwater for this trucking depot application? This is an important issue to consider as Caledon and Brampton learn more about how our wastewater and sewage systems could affect a link to preventing the further spread of COVID-19. See link in email 3. In addition, I ask what other steps, measures, tests, and studies have been or will be taken to prevent the current problems caused by illegal land use in Caledon from becoming worse and or occurring in Brampton. I and all Caledon and Brampton residents should feel confident that everything possible has been done to make sure that our current situations do not become hazardous and troublesome. Should the said applicant receive approval to build a temporary trucking depot near our residential properties. I thank you for your time and for allowing me to speak at the part of this meeting, and this concludes my concerns on this application. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if staff just want to make a comment of how we incorporate environmental assessment and how we sort of grade applications based on their environmental, I believe, criteria.
Yes,
Alan,
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Yes. So, and exactly that, Mr. Chairman. So staff will be, through both the review of the temporary use bylaw application that is with us here tonight, as well as the a site plan application that would be required if use permissions are provided to the temporary use application. Staff will look at all the detailed technical matters relating to the site, all the details with respect to the grading of the site, the direction of stormwater flow, the need for any potential septic and service lines through to the site as well. Staff will be looking at all of those very detailed matters if it is that the use permission is provided for this three-year period. And so staff will also be reaching out to regional staff will be circulating through to the conservation authorities as well as our own internal environment staff. So with the receipt of all of those comments, staff will be making determination on this application as well as the later site plan application, and we won't be providing any approvals to a later site plan application unless all these important technical matters are all resolved.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I do have no further questions or comments. So I do have a motion here moved by Councillor Dillon. No, my apologies, Councillor Singh, to approve the staff report recommendations and receive the delegations and correspondence. That the report titled Information Report Application to amend the zoning bylaw for a temporary 3-year period permit truck parking, outdoor storage of tractor trailers as a temporary use. 2538948 Ontario Incorporated Blackthorn Development Corp., part of Lot 17, Concession 11, Northern Division, formerly Township of Toronto Gore, Part 4, Plan 43R 1977, except Part 1, Plan 43R 38657, Ward 10, to the Planning Development Committee meeting of November 16, 2020 be received, and that Planning, Building, and Economic Development staff be directed to report back to the Planning Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and the staff recommendation subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application and a comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, the statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. We now go on to item 5.6. And I will ask the clerk if we've received any submissions or requests to delegate to committee on this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not, except for correspondence items 11.4.
Okay, and I will hand this over. Is there a staff presentation? Nope. Okay, do any members have any questions or comments? No? Okay, so, yep.
Mr. Chair, I think, again, this is a statutory public notice item, so we should receive the presentation as there are maybe members of the public watching.
Yes, and my apologies, I overlooked. Mr. Dykstra, go ahead, please.
I'll try to make this quick. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee and public. My name is Stephen Dykstra, and I'm the development planner that was assigned to process and review this application to temporarily amend the zoning bylaw. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application. As we know, no decisions will be made at this meeting. It is only for information purposes. Next slide. The subject property is located on the north side of Corporation Drive, and it's east of Torbram Road. Next slide. The zoning bylaw amendment is for the subject lands. It's in an established building. The temporary bylaw would be for uses that are located within the existing building. In the surrounding area, we have single detached residential dwellings to the west, a secondary school to the south, and industrial buildings to the north and to the east. Next slide. For the development application, it is for a temporary use for an additional 136 square meters of additional retail use, and to increase the amount of dining and takeout area to a total of 368 square meters. Next slide. The public notice was sent out to a 240 meter radius and was also provided in the Brampton Guardian and is on the city website. Next slide. Within the official plan, the lands are designated industrial. And since this is a temporary zoning bylaw, it will not require amendment to this. Next slide. Again, the property is designated general industrial and prestige industrial within the secondary plan area. And again, since this is a temporary bylaw, it does not require an amendment. Next slide. Finally, the zoning. The zone subject is currently zoned industrial M3A 363. The zone permits a range of industrial uses as well as a limited amount of accessory uses. The proposed temporary restaurant use will expand on the already permitted uses. Next. This shows you where we are in the process. After tonight's public meeting, staff comments will be received from city departments, members of the public, and any correspondence. The proposal will be further assessed against the PPS, Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Regional Official Plan, and City Official Plan Secondary Plan. Once the analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a report. The report will address any matters and all matters raised by public, external agencies, and other city departments. Anyone that provided the contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the report will be considered by the committee. Once a decision is made on the application by City Council, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision to the LPAC. Last, and here's the contact information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I do not see any questions or comments. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Williams to approve the staff report recommendations and receive correspondence 11.4. And the motion reads as follows: that the report titled Information Report Application to Temporarily Amend the Zoning Bylaw for Maspinock International Corporation, northeast corner of Corporation Drive and Torburn Road, Ward 8, to the Planning and Development Services Committee meeting of November 16, 2020 be received. The Planning and Development Services staff be directed to report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the results of public meeting and the staff recommendations subsequent to the completion of circulation of the application and a comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. That the following correspondence application temporarily amend the zoning bylaw, Maspinock International Corp, northeast corner of Corporation Drive in Torburn, Ward 8, to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16th. And correspondence. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will be counted in the affirmative. No. Okay. Thank you. And this item is now adjourned. We go now to item 5.7, staff report regarding proposed draft plan of subdivision. Madam Sharma, Kennedy Road Owners Group File OZS 2020-002 and 21T2007B. I will now hand this over to Ms. Lee from our Building, Planning, Economic Development Department.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members, members of the public. My name is Jacqueline Lee, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review this draft plan of subdivision application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public regarding the proposal and receive feedback on the application filed by Madan Sharma on behalf of Kennedy Road Owners Group. A decision on the application will not be made today. A recommendation report will be considered by the Planning and Development Committee at a future meeting, and a decision will be made at that point in time. The subject site is located on the west side of Kennedy Road South between Steeles Avenue West and 407 on properties municipally referred to as 7647, 7660, 7686, and 0 Kennedy Road in Ward 3. Next slide, please. The subject site is currently occupied by 3 single detached dwellings and associated accessory structures, which will be demolished in the future to accommodate the development proposal. The total site is approximately 1.34 hectares or 3.31 acres and has a frontage along Kennedy Road of approximately 241.69 meters or 792.95 feet. In the immediate vicinity are mainly recreational uses, including the Brampton Golf Club and Brampton Sports Park, with an institutional use abutting the subject site to the south. Existing residential, industrial, and open space uses are also part of the larger surrounding context. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an application for a draft plan of subdivision. The development ultimately proposes 71 townhouse units and 1 single detached home in a common element condominium. Details of the proposal include to create 1 residential block for the 71 townhouse dwelling units and 1 detached dwelling, and to create 2 reserve blocks along Kennedy Road South. Next slide, please. An official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment under file number T01E14.017 were previously approved through LPAT on July 12, 2019 to permit this development. This plan of subdivision application does not propose changes to the development proposal. Next slide. This map shows the property owners within a 240-meter limit of the proposed development who who have received notice by direct mail with respect to the application. Notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and the City of Brampton website. Next slide. The property is designated residential and special land use policy area 21 as per Schedule A of the official plan. This designation permits the development of townhouses and a single detached dwelling. An official plan amendment was approved July 2019 through LPAT to permit the proposed development, and there is not an applicable secondary plan designation for the site. The property is split zone residential townhouse C or R3C section 2970 and R3C section 2971 as per zoning bylaw 270-2004 as amended. The R3C 2970 zone permits townhouse dwellings having frontage on a private road, a single detached dwelling having frontage on a private road and purposes accessory to the permitted uses. The R3C-2971 zone permits dual frontage townhouse dwellings and purposes accessory to the permitted use. A zoning bylaw amendment was previously approved for the subject site to permit the proposed uses, and no changes to the zoning bylaw required to facilitate this proposal. Next slide. Potential issues include golf safety mitigation measures and the construction timings impact to the golfing season. These have been considered in the settlement agreement between the applicant, the city, and the Brampton Golf Club. Details for the design of the development will be reviewed through site plan application that has been submitted and is being reviewed concurrently with this application. Next slide, please. The application is being reviewed for consistency with the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, and conformity with the provincial growth plan, the regional and city official plans as well. Next slide, please. This slide shows where we are in the review application. The application for a draft plan of subdivision was submitted on March 9, 2020. After receiving additional documents, the application was deemed complete in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and a formal notice of complete application was issued to the applicant on August 19, 2020. The application has been circulated to city departments as well as external agencies for technical comments, and a notice for the public meeting was sent to property owners within 240-meter notification radius, published in the local paper and posted on the city's website. We are now at the public meeting stage where committee members and staff are here to receive feedback from residents. And after tonight's public meeting, staff comments received from the city departments, agencies, and members of the public that submitted correspondence, as well as matters raised at tonight's meeting through public delegations, will be reviewed and evaluated. The proposal will be further assessed against the provincial policy statement, the Greater Golden Horseshoe Growth Plan, and the regional and city official plans. Once the analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report that'll address matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and city departments. Anyone that's provided the contact information with respect to the application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by the committee. And once a decision is made by the on the application by City Council, there will be an opportunity to appeal the decision at the local planning appeal tribunal. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Jacqueline Lee, and my contact information is posted on the screen. Also on the screen is the contact information from Madan Sharna, who represents the property owner. Thank you. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? I see none. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Bowman to approve the staff report recommendations, that the report titled Information Report Proposed Draft Plan of Subdivision of Madan Sharma Kennedy Road Owners Group 76060 and 77686 Kennedy Road South Ward 3 dated October 28, 2020 to the Planning Development Committee meeting of November 26 be received. That Planning, Building, Economic Development Services staff be directed to report back to the Planning Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and the staff recommendation subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application and comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, so there's no objections, so the motion carries. Statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. And members of committee, before we start our public delegation, I'm going to suggest a 10-minute break, and we reconvene at 9:20 because, just as a reminder, we do have staff who are working and getting this online for us. So at 9:20, a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you, members of committee, members of the public. This meeting is now recessed for 10 minutes. Members of the public who are participating or waiting for your item to come up, please stay on the line on the attendee list as we will be reconvening in 10 minutes.
Hello, Peter, you still there? It's Councilor Williams.
Hi, Councillor, yes.
I just want to check my microphone again. I just was having hard
Yes, Mr. Chair, we can proceed.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We go now on to item 6.1, delegation from Catherine Trong, Director of Development, Rio K Management, application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit the redevelopment of Shoppers World. We can also bring forward staff report item 7.4 and deal with this item after receiving the delegation. Welcome, Catherine. You have 5 minutes.
So Catherine, you can unmute your microphone and please address the committee.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, please proceed.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council, staff, and the general public. Thank you for the opportunity to share RioCan's perspective and provide some additional context to the staff report that will be upcoming. My name is Catherine Trong, and I'm here on behalf of RioCan Management, Inc., Real Estate Investment Trust. Thank you to the members of council, city staff, and administration who have worked so hard during these uncertain times to collaborate with RioCan and to continue our zoning bylaw amendment submitted in October of 2019. I'll speak first briefly about RioCan and then about the Shoppers World Brampton project. RioCan is a real estate investment trust that focuses on retail, commercial, and mixed-use real estate assets. These are shopping centers, plazas, and standalone stores, and more recently, mixed-use buildings which have residential rental or condominium above a retail commercial podium. RioCan is one of Canada's largest REITs, and we specialize in assets across Canada's 6 major markets. These include the Greater Toronto Area, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, and Montreal. RioCan is the landowner and operator for Shoppers World Brampton. When I was first staffed on this project almost 2 years ago, I was extremely excited. Not only was this an opportunity for great city building, there was also a personal connection for me. You see, I grew up in Brampton, and I graduated from Notre Dame Secondary School, and I spent most of my childhood summers at Professor's Lake with my family. Also, when my family first came to Canada as refugees, they settled in Brampton. I remember my dad telling me about how Shoppers World Brampton was the hub for Brampton in the late 1970s. Unfortunately for me, growing up in the 90s and 2000s, Shoppers World didn't have quite the same appeal for myself. It was the station I would get on to take the Mississauga Route 19 to get to Square One. So as an adult, you can imagine how excited I am to work on this project and bring back the draw and sparkle that my dad saw in Shoppers World Brampton. Working alongside city staff and our great design team, RioCan looks forward to making Shoppers World Brampton once again a hub for Uptown Brampton. RioCan has been working on the Shoppers World Master Plan and rezoning submission for about 3 years now. Our first participation with the city was providing input from a retail and placemaking perspective for the Brampton 2040 vision document. Subsequently, RioCan has led a number of non-mandatory public open houses and information sessions in the spring of 2019 and the fall of 2019, obviously before COVID. RioCan has worked collaboratively with staff on a number of workshops, discussions, and meetings, and through many iterations produced the final submission master plan that the report will be based on, or is based on. RioCan is proud to be a city building partner with a municipality such as Brampton that values opportunities to transform existing assets and reimagine them into places of the future. RioCan is eager to start building this vision, quite literally, and to see this master plan we've worked so hard together come to life. We hope that Mr. Chairman and council members consider the recommendation from staff and supports moving forward with the rezoning of Shoppers World Brampton. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the delegation? No? Okay, I do have have a motion moved by Councillor Bowman and myself. And just let me say, Catherine, how poignant you talked about the appeal Shoppers World. I think both Councillor Bowman and myself, growing up close to Shoppers World, we've also spent a lot of times there, and so I'm very excited to see what will come forward. So the motion does read.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
there is a question from Councillor Vicente.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, I see it there. Councillor Vicente, go ahead.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. It's just a small queue. Question to Catherine. Just curious as to what kind of discussions you have had with regards to the Huron-Ontario LRT project and how it might interface with your property and your plan for Shoppers World.
Thank you, Councillor. That's a great question. We have focused more on the interface, knowing where the stop would be. So we wanted to make sure that with this development, we would provide opportunity to, have that connection, obviously without the LRT completed yet. And at the time when we started the discussions, it wasn't really sure which side of the road it would be on. So we always try to incorporate flexibility, in our plans, especially a master plan such as this, which would take, some time to build out. So we definitely see that connection at that corner, and we're happy to work with Mr. Links and the city to, get further into those details when the time is appropriate.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Catherine. So have you looked at potential contingencies or the possibility of the Huron-Ontario LRT instead of stopping on the south side of Steele, given Council's advocacy work with Metrolinx and the province to bring it to the north side? Can you just comment on what kind of work or conversations you may have had to advocate for that position?
I wouldn't say that we had advocated for it to come on any side. That wasn't RioCan's position. Our position was always to make sure that we would connect to it wherever it would be.
Okay.
Can I answer your question?
Okay, and so have city staff approached you or spoken with you in the regard of any possibility of the stop being on the north side and how that might work better or might change your plans or your design?
I mean, we have discussed with city staff a number of different scenarios, and I'm sure that was one of them. I don't think that it would really change our plan, as you will see in the presentation that we worked on. Not the presentation, sorry, the master plan that we've worked on, which the presentation will be based on. It's very high level from a rezoning standpoint. We still make the connection at that corner, whether, if it's on the north side, we can work with staff to figure out exactly how that design is. It's not necessarily something that we kind of take a deep dive into at the zoning portion of the process.
Okay, thank you. And just last question, Chair. Would you be willing to work more closely with the City of Brampton going forward as you refine your plan to help us in terms of communication and demonstration of your interest in seeing that stop located far closer and more conveniently and adjacent to your property as opposed to the current stop, which would be on the south side? Is that something you would like RioCan to be more involved in?
In that question, sorry, Councillor Vicente?
That would be to Catherine.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I was just on mute. Yes, we would be happy happy to work with the city to figure out that connection. As I said before, I don't think we necessarily advocate for the stop to be on either side. We're happy to facilitate. Obviously, the north side is a bit closer to us, which is great. And yeah, we're happy to work closely with the city and Metrolinx to figure out, what kind of connection would make the most sense in terms of, making that, movement easy for people who are coming onto our site via LRT.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, and we all share your excitement on this project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Vicente. Councillor Willens.
Yes, just quickly to you, Chair. Thank you, Catherine, for coming in. This is an exciting project. I share your father's thoughts about Shoppers World, because growing up in Brampton all my life, Shoppers World was a place to go. It was the only mall outside the Brampton Mall when I was growing up. But aside from that, I want to just thank you for working with our staff. I don't know if you know, but I'm the lead on the community energy and emissions plan that we have here in Brampton, and you guys have done a really good job at making that plan be sustainable as possible, and working with Sheridan College and our city staff. So thank you very much again for coming in. And like Councillor Vicente said, and the rest of our council, we're very excited with the two area councils. I know they're very excited for that project to get the shovels in the ground. So thanks very much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willens. And I think you make a great point there from the sustainability aspect. So I do have the motion now, as I see no further speakers, moved by Councillor Bowman and myself, that the delegation from Catherine Truong, Director of Development, Rio Cam Management, application to amend the zoning bylaw, file 0ZS 219-0009 to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16th, 2020 be received, that the report titled Recommendation Report Application to amend the zoning bylaw SVN Architects and Planners, Real Cam Management Incorporated, 499 Main Street South, Ward 3, dated October 16, 2020, to the Planning Development Committee meeting of November 16th be received, that the zoning bylaw amendment application submitted to SVN Architects and Planners, Real Cam Management Incorporated be approved on the basis that it represents good planning, including that it's consistent with provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, and the city's official plan for the reasons set out in this recommendation report. That the amendment to the zoning bylaw, generally in accordance with the attached Appendix 13 to this report, be adopted, and that no further notice or public meeting be required for the attached zoning bylaw amendment pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO CP 13, as amended. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, thank you. There's no objections, so the motion carries. We now go on to an added delegation, and I'll hand this over to you, Peter.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the next item is 6.5, delegation from Nikki Gill and Jenny Gill and Michelle Pawa, and this is in regard to item 7.2 on this evening's agenda. And Nikki, I will bring you into the meeting first. So Nikki, you are in the meeting now. You can unmute your microphone and address committee on this matter. So Nikki, you can unmute your microphone. There you go. Please proceed. So Nikki, we're not hearing you at the moment. Your microphone is active and it is unmuted. So Mr. Chair, I'm going to suggest that we pause Nikki and we go on to the next speaker. So the next speaker is Jenny Gill. Jenny, I'm unmuting your microphone. You can address the committee now.
Okay, good evening, Chair and the members of the City Council. Can you hear me? Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My concerns are for the development of Block 3, also known as 10230 Gorway Drive lot, and several of the homes being built on it. That property is on the major corner of Castlemore and Gorway Drive, and I live in that corner area as well. Just a little background. Prior to design of this Block 3 area, we as a community had put forward our very concerns about safety and the health of our children. I have spoken to several people on our street, and their opinions align with mine. That is that the new proposed design is not sufficient for our community. Let me elaborate on that. In our area, we have no park, not a single one, or even a simple play court for our community children in our area to use, where these new homes are being built. In our area, despite having so many children of different ages use all little different groups, we often notice these children playing in groups on the road, on different patches of the street, either playing hockey or basketball or riding little motorbikes or just simply playing tag with one another. And at times their soccer balls bounces into the live street, and at times children spring out of nowhere and fetch the ball in front of our cars. This witness event poses a great safety issue for the children and the drivers of that area. These children have no outlet to exercise their playful spirit. They need an open park designated for play activities. As it is now, there's an accident waiting to happen. Let's not wait for any tragedies to happen. We need to give these children an area to play. So maybe I feel that the city design team may have not heard us clearly. This area is in a dire need of a bigger park. I know there's a little slither attached to the park, but it's not enough. We need play courts, either they're hockey courts or basketball courts, soccer courts. A little parkette won't do. And also, that little new division that is being built, it had its own driveway out to Gormley Drive. So from that little community, we're going to have more cars onto Bloomsbury. That's where the children play. That's where the more cars are. And then most likely that community is going to use an existing exit, which is Paper Birch. Again, though that area is being used by large buses, more traffic. Just imagine the chaos, more danger. The other one is, and lastly, I have a few questions as well. Please also clarify in the Valley Land Block 3, what is the sidewalk line as per DZALDOV? I don't know what that is. Is it some sort of a sidewalk? If yes, are there future plans to expand it? And the second question is, will there be a path connected from the park to Gorway? Because you need an outlet also from the park to Gorway. There, I don't see any. So lastly, I just want to end by saying, please do not allow builders to build so many homes. There's so many homes already in a small area without any parks or traffic congestions in mind. And that's all I request. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. I do see, do we have the other delegation, Peter?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. So next we have Michelle Pawa, and then I will go back to Nikki Gill. So Michelle, you can unmute your microphone to address the committee.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please
Hello?
go ahead.
Oh, great. Hi, good evening, council members and fellow Brampton residents. My name is Michelle Pawa, and I'm a resident of Pecan Drive. And as Nikki has mentioned, there's some real need for this area to have public outside parks for the safety of the kids in the neighborhood. We have lots of young kids. There's an enormous amount of residents within this area that has young kids, and we just don't have any access to a nearby park. The nearest park is approximately a 40-minute walk for young kids, which is extremely far. And there's no way elderlies can get to that kind of an area. We have lots of seniors in our area that need something of that for outdoor exercise, to sit and to meet family members and have outdoor access. Everybody needs accessibility. It's highlighted during this pandemic on what kind of need we have to be able to be walking to a nearby park and spend time and be active. We have kids playing on the streets, we have cars driving by, and it's a real concern. I know there's been attempts by the residents of this area for many years now since since our current subdivision has been built. It's been about 15 years, and we've been preaching for a park in the area, and it's been constantly pushed away. I've called the city many times, and there's just no access. Currently, the park extension that you have as near Block 2 on this, we need to walk on a very dangerous, narrow Goreway Drive on a pebbled kind of sidewalk to squeeze in and try to sneak into that park. It's certainly not a safe access for young kids or the elderly in this neighborhood. You've got approximately on Goreway Drive, just facing Goreway Drive, you've got about 4 units that are planned to be built there. And we would really request that these 4 units not be built and that be an extension of the park so that it's a larger area where we have gazebo and benches and basketball courts, because you can imagine this new subdivision is going to be filled with even more young kids and elderly community members. And we need this for this neighborhood. It's long overdue, and I would request the city to consider our requests on behalf of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Nikki Gill. Nikki, can we try to unmute your microphone again? Go ahead, Nikki. Nikki, your microphone is unmuted. You can address the committee. Mr. Chair, I'm just going to try it one more time. Nikki?
Okay.
So Nikki, go ahead, please. Mr. Chair, it looks like maybe she's called in. I'm just going to try and see if the call-in user is Nikki. The person that just called in by telephone. Is that Nikki? Is that
Hello?
you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Can you please just turn down the speaker so there's no feedback?
Is there still feedback right now?
Okay, that's fine. Please go ahead to address the committee.
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki Gill Burns, and I'm a homeowner, and I live a few steps away from the new proposed development. It is unfortunate that our community has been developed with a piecemeal approach. With this new infill development proposal, we are very concerned with the design and lack of green space planning. Several community members had originally attended the initial planning meeting, where we made these points quite clear. We are extremely disappointed that none of these points were taken into consideration by the city staff. Frankly, the fact is that the planners and city staff have dropped the ball. This land should have been expropriated from the get-go to plan with more human aspect. You will note that currently we have no access to any park. Once this Valley West Road is opened up to meet Bloomsbury Avenue, only then our children will have access to a little kiddie park, leaving behind tweens and teenagers and seniors yet again. There is no planning for an open space with shaded gazebo, sitting area, or children and seniors, basketball court, or a soccer field, or free play. We're really not asking for much, just the basics for a community. It currently takes 40 minutes for our children to unsafely walk to the closest park, which is James Margaret McGee, next to Holy Spirit Catholic School, by going on to Goreway Drive, which is a very busy road. The time will be reduced to 30 minutes once the proposed development is built. What a shame that our children have to still walk 30 minutes to get to a soccer field or a basketball field or just simply a shaded gazebo. We feel like we live in a third world country with such few amenities and poor planning. Safety is a huge concern. Currently, our streets are filled with hockey nets and basketball nets. I literally cringe when I drive into our community and see little children run onto the middle of the street into oncoming traffic. It's an accident waiting to happen. What's it going to take? A death of a child? Our children play in the streets because there's no park to facilitate the community. We're a pocket within Brampton that gets overlooked and forgotten continuously since there is no official plan because of the piecemeal approach that the city of Brampton has allowed. Our children have already suffered for the last 15 years because we had to drive our children to the nearest park so they could simply play in the sand. We just wanted to be able to walk to a park with our children. So sad that we were not given the opportunity while living in Brampton for the last 15 years. It's a simple ask. Our children paid the price and they are now young adults, and I don't want our future generations to go through what we had to endure. Please take note that we officially object to the current plan. We have an opportunity to plan it well. It's time to save our community now that we have the chance. Let's do it right. Thank you for your time. This concludes our concerns on this infill development proposal.
Okay, thank you. And as I see, there's Peter just confirming there's no resident delegations.
That is all the delegations, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I do now have Councillor Dillon. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Medeiros. Just, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. I actually had a chance to speak to some of the residents during the entire process, and just recently met with Miss Gill, both of them actually at their residence, and we took a walk through their community, and it's unfortunate that I guess previous design flaws in the area have allowed are continuing. If you take a look at Bloomsbury Park, it's about a 4 block for kids. The nearest parkette is on Paper Birch, but there's actually no facilities there for the kids, so it's a considerable walk for them. And the residents have stated that this particular park is not enough. It's a long walk to Bloomsbury, but there's not enough of the amenities that the kids need here. And so there's a few issues. The second thing I wanted to ask is there was a resident, Stu Allen. There was a resident who had made a Mr. Graywall, just Mayor Graywall, had made a request that the I believe is the west, is the south end of the park, the new park, the extension to it be straightened out. He says it's on an angle. I'm wondering if you can give a response to that.
Yes, hello. Through you, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Dillon. Look, just in advance of the meeting, really having seen that that request come forward, have looked at the matter just briefly, Councillor, and spoken with staff about it to understand really how it might be that staff could really work with the council and councillors about making a change, possibly in the way as the residents reflected there, with an ask that the dimension of the west side of the park, just as it is adjacent to Valley West Road, that it be modified to, I guess, make it more regular lot line, which is like perpendicular to the road. What I saw really through the review is that the parkland as proposed through this application, which is I think it's 0.09 hectares, is the very close there to the maximum amount of parkland that the city is able to require from the applicants. Just through the Planning Act, we have a couple of key provisions that we have to obviously conform to, and so the Act's provisions as it relates to parkland dedication is quite specific in identifying really how parkland requirements are to be calculated, and then it states also that those parkland amounts, the city doesn't have authority to require more than the amounts identified through this very specific calculation. What I'm understanding from our staff and park staff in particular is that the 0.09 hectares, which is really what is provided on the plan at this point in time, is I think it's very close to the amount that we can ask for from this plan of subdivision and require from the applicant. With the change as noted from the applicant to change the property line, I'm understanding that would push us beyond really what we're allowed to require for the amount of parkland. So, we're here to really answer councilors' questions relating to some possibilities and such. We have some more dialogue on this, but just simply the amount of additional area that would be added to the park if it was to be changed the way that the resident has identified would really exceed the amount that is noted as per the Planning Act.
Right. If you take a look at just down the road in Bloomsbury, they actually have two parks there. One is directly on Jacksonville and Bloomsbury, and then they have another park just nearby. And so, I've been in that area as well, and it's accessible for both. For people, both parks are accessible for everybody who live in the area. And across the ravine, you look at the tree line area as well. They have quite a considerably large park. It's 5+ acres, tree line park, and then there's another park just towards the north where Donwoods is. I've been pretty consistent in my time here in terms of the design needs that residents require, and some of the access to the parks as well. And so, with this report in particular, I don't think I can support it today. We've sent a number of some correspondence to staff in regards to this as well, letting them know that these are not desirable by the residents. And so a number of residents have contacted me, and they've said that it's not in the best interest of the children and of the residents of the area. So those are my comments for now, and I yield the rest.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you. I share similar concerns with Councillor Dillon. I've had numerous residents also reach out to me, and having been in this area, I have family in this area as well. They've also relayed similar concerns about the parkland, and I can't support the way the plan is right now. It's a safety issue, a distant issue. So I will not be supporting it, this plan the way it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I do not see any further speakers. So I do not have no councillors have come forward to move this motion. Clerk, if you can maybe provide some guidance.
Through you, Mr. Chair, any member of committee can move the motion, but without a mover, there is no motion on the floor. And the only other alternative would be to either receive the report and take no action, or probably preferable would be to refer it back to staff or to defer the item to a future Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Okay, so I do actually have Councillor Santos is actually moving the report. So the motion moved by Councillor Santos to receive the delegation correspondence item 11.5 and approve the staff report item 7.2 recommendations. that the delegation from Nikki Gill and Jenny Gill and the additional
Michelle Pawa.
Michelle Pawa regarding application to amend the zoning bylaw proposed draft plan of subdivision to develop approximately 20 single detached residential units in Parquet, 2047-189 Ontario, Conefcon Limited, to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16, 2020 be received. That the report titled Recommendation Report Application to amend the zoning bylaw proposed draft plan of subdivision 2047-189 Ontario Incorporated, Conefcon Limited, dated October 23, 2020, to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 16 be received. That the zoning bylaw amendment draft plan of subdivisions application submitted by Conefcon Limited be approved on the basis that they represent good planning, including that they are consistent with the provincial policy statement, conform to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region Appeal official plan, and the city's official plan for the reasons set out in the recommendation report. That the amendments to the zoning bylaw generally in accordance with the attached appendix 11 to this report be adopted. That no further notice or public meeting be required for the attached zoning bylaw amendment pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act RSOCP 13 as amended. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative.
Opposed.
So Councillor Dillon opposed as well.
So you requested a recorded vote, Councillor Dillon?
Yeah.
Okay. Peter, if you can administer our recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote's been requested on the motion for item 7.2. All in favor, please indicate. Councillor Santos?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Councillor Vicente?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Willens?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion carries 8-2.
Okay. Thank you. We have now an added delegation, and delegation from Tom Baskerville regarding application to amend the zoning bylaw proposed draft plan of subdivision Weston Consultant, Ward 6. So if we can bring forward staff report item 7.3 and deal with the item after receiving the delegation. Welcome, Tom. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. We're in support of the staff report and the motion. I have to tell you that unfortunately I'm in a house that is still afflicted with a power outage, so I have no Wi-Fi and so on. So I'm hoping that I'm working through my cell phone, and I'm hoping the connection and you can hear me okay. We purchased this property in October of last year. The prior owner had been the original applicant on this file some 2 years earlier. And so when we purchased the property, the plan had already been circulated. There was already plenty of agency and staff comments in hand, as well as it had been through a public meeting. And so we had the benefit of that as well. When we purchased it, we sat down with staff to understand what the major issues were and how they might be resolved, as well as the ward councillors at the same time. So the issues were that there was no public buffer being provided at the woodlot, and we've now provided one that meets the requirements of conservation in the city. The units that front onto Wanless were supposed to be oriented to address Wanless with the frontages. We've now made that correction. Many of the units had substandard frontages. We've corrected that to provide the frontages required by the city. And finally, the original application proposed a public street with a cul-de-sac that didn't meet the city's criteria and wouldn't have met for fire and garbage pickup and so on. So we've changed that to an alignment that meets the Peel Region requirements for garbage pickup, and it meets the city requirements as well. In addition to those 4 items, it was pointed out, and by virtue of an earlier public meeting, that we were required to acquire a block of land that the city owned to be able to get access from this infill development to Tree Grove Crescent, an adjacent road to the west of this particular project. And I apologize, this is where the access to Wi-Fi would have come in handy, but I think we're trying to get the plan up on the rear. So the access is up in the top left of that plan through to an existing crescent called Tree Grove Crescent. And it was known that the residents of Tree Grove Crescent weren't in favor of the additional traffic. It's a very quiet crescent, and the additional traffic load was probably the biggest objection. However, staff made very clear that that was the requirement, that the traffic reports and city staff had examined the issue. And so we started to go through the acquisition process as early as December 2019. That process is a little cumbersome when the city has to dispose of land, and then it got bogged down in March, and of course COVID didn't really help that situation. So we tried to see if we could promote an access directly off to Wanless. We hired a traffic consultant to prepare a design and to make a proposal to staff to promote direct access to Wanless. And after months of work on that, we were advised that the city would not be in support of a direct access to Wanless, and we were directed once again to acquire the block for access to Tree Grove Crescent, which we've now done. And we do have that access, or that block, in our possession, or under our control. So when the city approved the access over to Tree Grove, it was at the time of the plan of subdivision in which the residents there live, and there was notice provisions put on all of the agreements of purchase and sale. The alignment of the access and the road into the future development block was shown on all of the community mapping that residents would have seen. The number of homes may not have been known, but whether it was 20 or 25 singles versus 53 townhomes, I don't think is really the issue. It's just a question of additional traffic being objectionable. In any event, all of our traffic studies have confirmed that the traffic that Tree Grove will experience is actually typical of many residential streets in Brampton and elsewhere. So we've now committed to the required alignment of our street for access to the site. In addition, it's probably important to point out that the proposal meets many other city and provincial policy objectives. The site represents intensification, growing within your built boundary before you look to greenfield development. And yet it's sensitive to the area builders. I mean, we're not proposing a 6-story building or set of buildings here. It's townhouses and semis, which is not overwhelming to the existing residents on either side. It's the use of existing infrastructure that is something that is encouraged in Brampton and through the growth plan. The council has the 2019 to 2022 council direction compass and also Living the Mosaic initiatives, both of which align with the type of development that we're proposing here. So there's a number of things that this proposal fulfills for the city of Brampton. We had a second public meeting in June of this year in which some other concerns were raised. One was relating to water pressure. We've completed a functional servicing report that's been approved by the city engineering department that confirms that we have a connection proposed to water mains in Wanless as well as Tree Grove. So there's a throughput and a further connection and looping of the water system. So it's not expected to have any adverse impact on existing residents. There was concerns around ecological issues around the woodlot and the buffer. So we're now providing a buffer. It'll be heavily planted. We're required under the draft plan conditions proposed to clean up the existing woodlot, which is owned by the city, to deal with invasive species and additional planting. So there's a net benefit to the woodlot and to the buffer in the area in general. There was some concern or discussion at the public meeting about lot premiums that existing residents would have paid. And I just want to clarify that nobody who backed onto a woodlot will see any change. In fact, those who backed onto what used to be a construction yard and some old sheds and so on, all of that's cleaned up and additional plantings will go in there to assist with buffering and so on. In summary, I think the project provides an infill and intensification opportunity in a form and design that meets the city's desire and obligation under council-approved planning policies of this type. The city had the foresight to take an access block to protect for the function of Wanless Drive, and we're able to implement that. The city took all reasonable steps to advise the existing residents of what was proposed for the area, and we examined in great detail any option to try to steer traffic directly to Wanless before agreeing that we would have to use the Tree Grove access route. Over this last year, we've worked hard with staff to resolve quite a number of issues. The process has gone very well, considering the difficulties that COVID adds to that process. But I think we've resolved everything to staff satisfaction, and we're asking for committee's approval tonight. I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have Councillor Plushy on the board. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to move receipt of the delegation, and then I'd like to ask you to bring item 7.3 forward.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Plushy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to move the staff report item 7.3. I do have a slight amendment that I would like to make, that the development be allowed a right-in, right-out onto Wanless Drive at the east and west side of the development, and for staff to work with the developer to ensure that no time's wasted in turning around the site plan agreement.
Okay. I see Councillor Willens. Are you done, Councillor Plushy?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Willens?
Yeah, I just want to, just as I was typing there, Councillor Paleshi said exactly what I was going to say. As long as it doesn't, we'd like to see the right in, right out, as long as it doesn't hold up the project for Tom. That's the biggest concern, is the access on a Tree Grove. So we'd like to see if we can get that rectified, and just as long as we don't hold up the application. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have a motion here moved by Councillor Paleshi to receive the delegation and approve the staff report item 7.3 recommendations with amendments. So the motion that the delegation from Tom Basketball application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of 2128743 Ontario Incorporated Western Consulting Group Incorporated to the Planning Development Committee meeting of November 16, 2020. And Peter, if I can ask you to read the remaining, I'm just not sure where the amendments are, so my apologies.
So
Mr. Chair, if it helps, I'll move that it's taken as read, move with the clerk's office in terms of laying out what my amendment was.
Mr. Chair, I'd rather read the amendment so it's clear what members are voting on.
Okay, so if Peter, are you asking me to repeat it? Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recite back what I have. So you are technically amending, you're either amending staff recommendation 3 or you're adding a new recommendation. We need some clarity on that, the application be permitted to have a right-in, right-out on Wanless on the east side of the development, and that A request be made of the developer to work with staff to work on the site plan agreement as expeditiously as possible. Is that the intent?
Yes, the write-in, write-out is a write-in on the west side of the development, a write-out on the east side of the development, and for staff to work with the applicant as expeditiously to approve the site plan agreement.
And a request be made that the developer work with city staff to proceed forward with the site plan agreement as expeditiously as possible.
That staff work with the developer.
On the site plan agreement. Does that reflect your intent, Councillor Paleshi?
Yes, and just finally, just to staff through you, Mr. Chair, that staff be given the opportunity to work with the developer in order to ensure the easy transition into what was the application that was before us to making this a better development within the community, and that we don't allow the site access from Tree Grove, and that if it means even turning this road from a two-way to a one-way, I leave that up to staff to determine what the best go forward is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. So members of committee, do you need that to be reread? Is there anyone that would request that we reread that, or can you take it as amended? Okay, I see no one. So is there anyone object? No. So otherwise, no one opposes the motion, so your vote will count in the affirmative. So there's no objection, so the motion carries. Thank you. And we go on to staff presentations and planning reports, item 7.1. I think that was pulled from consent, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Councillor Bowman, I believe.
Councillor Bowman, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. It's been a long meeting. I'm not going to draw it out much further. I just had a question about the reducing the minimum visitor parking requirements at seniors residents to match with apartment buildings. I think what we've seen with COVID over the last 8 months is that seniors and seniors buildings and the area around them are under great scrutiny right now. I don't believe personally that changing from 0.25 to 0.20 is necessary. I think in the future you'll find that seniors' homes are changing a little bit, and there will be probably more people going in to check what's going on there, more people going in to be with their family members. And if you've ever had a person in your family in a senior's home and you go and you can't find a parking spot, and you want to take them out somewhere, you've got to escort them to the door, drive up to the door, or escort them down the driveway to wherever you're parked. I think it's a major inconvenience. I think our seniors deserve a lot more respect than that. So I would like to leave the senior visitors parking as it is at 0.25, and I'm okay with the rest of the changes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowman. Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind members of committee that over the past year, we have spoken a lot about parking minimums, particularly in regards to higher density development in areas that are better served by transit, particularly as it would pertain to the downtown Brampton area and Queen Street corridor and other areas that are well served by transit. And the idea that if we want to reduce congestion, if we want to promote active transportation, if we want to promote transit use, it kind of conflicts with the idea of automatically baking in to every development large amounts of parking. I noticed with great interest in reading the report that there are jurisdictions that have followed the wisdom that many other parts of the world are now implementing, which is the idea that there shouldn't be parking minimums that accompany our zoning and regulations, and it should be left up to the developer to decide what is marketable, what is necessary. And so I would like to refer this report back to staff for them to come back to us with the elimination of parking requirements where appropriate in areas where it's higher density, it's better served by transit, more central, and where we can leave it to the market to decide which developments need to have parking, which customers are willing to, which residents are willing to pay to have parking built at cost within a particular development. And for those who use transit, who cycle or who walk, or perhaps work very close to home, to have the option of not even having a parking spot. And I also read with great interest some correspondence from one of the people commenting on staff's work, which is unbelievable, by the way. This is a very comprehensive report, so my kudos to staff on that. On the idea that if we were to reduce parking minimums, that is going to have an adverse effect on the saleability of our units or the resale value of units. Well, the way I read that was that the unit can become more affordable and can become more palatable to folks who just don't have a car, don't want a car, and want to purchase something that is to their needs and to their lifestyle. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to request for referral back to staff.
Okay, now speaking to the referral, next in line is Councillor Willens.
Well, I would hope that Councillor Vicente would hold his referral until we all had a chance to speak, but I guess I could word it in a way that I could speak to the referral. Yeah, I guess if we're going to bring a referral back, I think that staff should address Councillor Bowman's concern. My mother did spend some time in two long-term care facilities here in Brampton, and at times it was difficult to get her across to a parking lot. So if I would have had to take her out to a road or an adjacent facility nearby, it would have been certainly difficult. So I think maybe if staff can, I can understand totally what Councillor Vicente is saying as well. If it's on a transit route or if it's a high transit, maybe it should be left up to an area. If we've spoken about a couple areas today that are in remote areas that don't necessarily have the transit just as yet. So maybe as part of the referral, we can address what some of Councillor Bowman's concern. But the rest of the report I was okay with. I read through it and I'm okay with that, but I'm just not a little uneasy about taking parking requirements away from seniors' residents or long-term care. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willens, and well done skillfully addressing and speaking to the referral. On to Councillor Santos. As a reminder, speaking to the referral.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. Chair, I do support Councillor Vicente's referral back to staff. Over the past few months, we have been talking to staff about creating no requirements for parking, especially around transit corridors and the central area of downtown Brampton when it comes to higher density developments. And as Councillor Vicente had mentioned about the reasoning why we need to refer this back to staff, it's also about affordability for people looking for more affordable housing options in Brampton. And finally, I just do want to add, as this is referred back to staff, we are trying to, again, encourage people not to travel by car, but to take transit, active transportation, especially near transit corridors, in order to deal with congestion. One of the ways to deal with congestion is by disincenting people to take their cars. So I support the referral, but I also acknowledge and appreciate the comments made by Councillor Bowman and Councillor Willens with respect to those areas that are outside of transit corridors that may need parking, especially long-term care and senior home facilities. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. As I see no further speakers, we do have a referral back to staff by Councillor Vicente. And Councillor Vicente, do you have any timelines regarding this, or when deemed by staff appropriate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. I would refer that question to Commissioner Forward.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. So yes, we'll report back as soon as possible, which I think we probably can do, certainly I think before or by the next planning meeting with respect to these issues.
Thank you,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Yeah, and thank you. And if more time is needed, do let us know, Commissioner Ford. Thank you. So a referral, does anyone object? No? Okay, so the motion carries. We move on. All the items have been addressed. And if I'm not mistaken, Peter, we are on to new business, item 9.1, an added agenda item by Councillor Fortini.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Yes, we've been working on with the staff, with myself and Councilor Madero's, how to get more development here on high rises for residential and commercial. These days it's going to be a little bit more challenging to do affordable housing. So we came up with something saying maybe we could waive development charges for 3 or 5 years, and hoping that these developers come and start building. I know there'll be a cost on development charges, waiving, but you got to always look in the long run. You get a high rise where you get 400 or 500 condos and they get development charges waived. An average condo, $3,000, that brings in $15 million. Not only 1 year, that's every year. Development charges only get paid once. So I want to send a report back to staff how we could see how we could get the development waived, maybe 3 years for the 100%, and 5 years maybe a 30% waive. And this will also attract a lot more development in commercial and also residential, only on the transit line along Queen Street from border to border and Main Street border to border. So, at the end of the day, a lot of these people bring an application, they change the zoning, and then they just sit on it, and nobody builds. And if we look at the market, compare to Mississauga, let's say, and you see all these cranes, or you go to Toronto, like Eglinton and Yonge, those people are paying close to $2,800, $3,000 a square foot in Toronto. Brampton, they can't compete, so we have to give them a little bit of leadway and start tracking. And we do need a little bit more height and residentials. So I'm asking staff, there's a motion on the floor, I can't even see it here, I'm on the phone, but to go back and hoping to come back maybe in the next council meeting in December and see, or by the end of the year, planning meeting, how we could help waive these DC charges, and maybe it might be even a budget impact for the first year.
Thank Thank you, Councillor Fortini, and just to, I think, add, and also I'd be putting my name to moving the motion along with Councillor Fortini, just as a sort of for members of committee. The intent is to, as we're especially during COVID and what the impact will be, and we've heard from the sector, there's some uneasiness of doing high-rise development, especially in Brampton. So I think the idea is providing some sort of incentive, almost extending what we have of our sort of downtown CI central area program, where essentially if developers can finish a project within a 3, 5 year or 7 year period, there would be some form of relief when it comes to DCs. Obviously, we're asking staff to look at what the financial impact would be and how we would make that. But I think what we're trying to achieve is having economic activity, so having some form of recovery, and at the same time stimulating the market, ensuring that that some of these investors are not just sitting on waiting to see what happens, is that they actually move ahead and provide sort of the much relief that we need when it comes to affordable housing and our challenge with secondary illegal units. In terms of the time frame, I'm wondering, staff can come back to us, but I was hoping that maybe at budget time, if there is enough time to come back and have this referred to our budget discussion, and that's fine if staff think that it's too much under, if they're under too much pressure to be able to do this work by budget, that's fine. We can wait for Q1 of the new year. But ideally, we would like that as the budget. So I see that there are many speakers, and I will move on.
Yeah, and also, if we could add it, they could look at the HD portion, waiving fees for planning fees, or anything we could do to help bring this along the transit line, because we got to attract more height and a little bit of business. And I understand development charges, we need to fix the roads. We can find that during the budget. But when you're doing, like I say, a condo and you're building or a commercial and you have 500-600 units and average 300, that's a tax that comes in to our city every year, not just once, that $4 or $5 million on development charges. And that's only the city portion. So maybe we could look at doing 3 years, 100%, from up to 5 years, a 30%, up to 7 years, a 10% fee to save them. And maybe we get a lot of these people, not just putting up zoning applications sitting on them, maybe to start building. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fortini. I do have first is Councillor, no, my apologies. Is that Councillor Vicente? No, that's for 7.1.
I believe it's Councillor Santa. Sorry,
Councillor Willens. Councillor Willens is the first speaker. Councillor Willens, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you for deja vu, Councillor Fortini. This was something that we talked about last term of council, and I think if staff could touch base with Paul Aldonati, he put a presentation together at a workshop, exactly what Councillor Fortini is talking about, deferring the development charges, because you do make it back up in the tax base when the building is built. So yeah, I'd be anxious to see a report come back, because this was spoken about last term of council and we didn't get anywhere with it. But thanks for bringing it back up.
Thank you, Councillor Willens. Councillor Paletti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just by way of the report coming back, if staff could talk about any current construction projects that that would be affected by this, essentially, and what is classified as high-rise development. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Palashi. And I would just add to staff as well, I think that's an important point. What would be considered sort of high-rise in terms of 30, or if there's some criteria there, and feel free to, I guess, consult with all respective councillors to see if that would be, what you would envision or what would be included in something like this. So again, in terms of the timelines, Peter, I would like to be referred to the budget deliberations, and staff can then report if they can't meet the budget deliberations, if they can, then after we're fine to move it to Q1. So that's what I would be aiming for.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, sorry. This is
Yeah.
when we're talking about high rises. I'm not talking residential homes at all. I'm talking more commercial, for office space when you're going 10 stories and up, and residential. So along just the two main corridors right through. Okay, just to make it clear. Thank you.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Mr. Chair, my recommendation is that this motion needs to be read because there are a number of members that are on the phone that may not be able to see what's on the screen.
Yeah.
And all members need to know what they're voting on.
Can
I'll
I
go
ask
ahead
you to read it for me, Peter?
Yes, certainly. So the motion is that, it's a two-part motion. First part, that staff explore the opportunity of waiving the city's development charge, DC portion, either full amount or a portion of DCs, depending when construction occurs, i.e. 3, 5, or 7 years, for high-rise developments across the city, and report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the financial implications in Q1 of 2021 or in the context of budget deliberations if possible. And the second part is that staff undertake a review of the current central area CIP and housing strategy. One, to potentially offer financial and non-financial incentives that would expedite the construction of residential development and offer an array of housing tenure along Hurontario and the Queen Street corridors. Two, to ensure residential development occurs in a timely manner. All financial and non-financial incentives should have a specific time frame prescribed, i.e. 3 years. And three, for staff to report back to the Planning and Development Committee within Q1 of 2021 with their findings.
Okay, that's great. Are you satisfied with that, Councilor Fortini? Yeah, I assume he is. Okay.
That's great. I'm fine with that. Then hoping they could come back quickly. And going back to Councilor Palacio, I'm hoping, I know we got some applications. There's not many applications for high rises at this moment, so it shouldn't affect that many. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone oppose?
Mr. Chair, I'm on the board to speak.
Oh, my apologies. Councilor Palacio, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, I think there is a couple that are currently either have a crane in the ground or the applications have been supported by us. I don't know what they're waiting for, but I guess those need to be talked about. I'm getting the feeling that this is a lot around supporting residential. And I guess what I don't want that perception that we're only doing this for residential. I want us to open up maybe even more opportunity for office buildings if chosen to go along those corridors as well. I think that that this is something that's a really good opportunity for excelling those areas in terms of trying to get some employment and some office buildings in along the Hurontario and Queen Street corridors, and maybe we look at opening this up to other areas in the city of Brampton as well.
Yeah, to make clarify, sorry, Mr. Chair, I can to Councilor Palacio, this is also for office, so it's for both. Not just residential, also for office. We need jobs.
So I think everyone is right, and kind of, I think, Bob, if you're on, I would just ask Bob just to provide just a very short comment, because just a reminder to members of committee, and the reason why this was brought forward is because we're already looking at other aspects such as commercial, looking at the CIP within that context. So what we felt was missing was the sort of high-rise component where, especially with everyone, some of the approvals that we've had, and there hasn't been much movement on the development, the idea was to stimulate a sort of a market for people to take advantage of it. Bob, are you on? Can you just provide just a quick comment on how this aligns with some of the work you're already doing, and that's coming back in the new year?
Absolutely. So through the chair, as you know, we've been working on the CIP program with others throughout the corporation, and that's particularly focused on the type of higher quality jobs that we're looking for, the office uses. Now, the current DC program in the central area already exempts, or actually I think citywide exempts office uses above a certain size. So that is something that we currently do provide. But the CIP review that's currently underway, and we've had a council workshop, and we'll be coming back with some more information shortly with the draft recommendations early in the new year. We'll point to the package that the consultants are suggesting would be helpful. So this is something we can incorporate in that body of work, as well as for the residential side. Through the incentives, we're looking to flesh out the range of housing types and supports that we offer to get that range of affordability. So those are all things we can look at, and we can try and get this back as fast as possible.
Yeah, and thank you, Bob, again. And I know you're doing, and you and your staff are doing excellent work on the long-term report, and I don't want you guys to now be sidetracked with this. I just, if it's something that is relatively that we can have a discussion. It does seem that there are members of committee or of council interested in this item, and interesting about the criteria and looking at, for example, sustainability. Maybe there might be some options when we're looking at high-rise. If there's some innovative landmark type of buildings or ones that are very innovative from a sustainability environmental perspective. So I think we just, the conversation is worth having, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I do see another speaker. Councillor Paletti, you had the floor. Are you fine?
Yeah, just really briefly, Mr. Chair, I'm kind of, as Bob was talking and you're talking, I'm thinking here, I think, Bob, we know CIP, it's not enough for office. So I think this is a great opportunity. When Councillor Fortini was speaking, he was opening it up to kind of anything that we can provide, and which is good, it's what I like to hear. So when that comes back, hopefully we can work through this. And I'm just kind of thinking now, I don't know if I like seeing Care Ontario and Queen Street on there anymore. There's huge opportunity throughout the city, in many different areas where, we could say along Steeles, we could say along Dixie, we could say there's a lot of other areas that may flourish with some type of redevelopment if an opportunity like this comes up in the city. So I'm almost asking that we strike out Care Ontario and Queen Street, Mr. Chair, if Councillor Fortini is okay with that, and we look at this citywide.
Yep, and I think that. Go ahead, Councillor Fortini. Yep.
My motion, it wasn't only about those two. I was asking for a transit line. I know I just mentioned those two roads, but Councillor Paletti is right. You got Steeles, you got McLaughlin, you got Chinguacousy. Any road where we have a heavy transit line, I think this is a great idea to open it up and start getting some cranes up. You drive by Mississauga, I counted 28 cranes last week. It's just, how much property tax that city's going to be bringing in year after year after year. And those are the people that outset the residential taxes when we start getting these things on 2 or 3 acres of land, and you start getting $18 million. And so I'm willing to support Councillor Paletti. That's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
That was exactly my suggestion, to strike that out. And I was going to add another amendment, maybe. I think the uneasiness because it says in option 2, just residential. So maybe residential, office space, commercial. So it includes everything. But I was gonna also ask to strike out here Ontario and Queen Street, so we could look at it citywide. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. And those are excellent comments. And I think that was the original intent, was something citywide. It was just to expand on what we have on the downtown Brampton. And as Councillor Willens mentioned, that there was discussions in previous council, and we're just looking to be aggressive in ensuring that there is economic development in the city. So thank you everyone for your comments. And we do have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini and myself. Anyone opposed? No, unanimously carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to Councillor question period. Are there any questions by members of committee? No? Okay, now we move on to public question period. Are there any questions from the public, Peter?
There are none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no closed session. So our last item of business is adjournment. Our next committee meeting is December 7th at 7 p.m. I have a motion moved by Councillor Paletti to adjourn tonight's meeting. that the Planning Development Committee do now adjourn to meet again on Monday, December 7th at 7 p.m. or at the call of the chair. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy, most importantly, practice physical distancing and wear face covering when inside public spaces. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.